Chapter 540. The strongest of the Long family Gu In nearly laughed out loud when he heard the words of the Blood Prison Great Saint, but he restrained himself. He did not dispel the Blood Prison Great Saint's confusion, preferring to let the fellow continue his anxious trepidation. It served him right, since the Blood Prison Great Saint had been somewhat negligent in recent years. Seeing that Gu In was unwilling to speak, the Blood Prison Great Saint's inner perplexity grew, but he dared not voice it. Instead, he pushed aside his inner fears and apprehension and shifted his focus. Even if his master was no match for that person, his master certainly had a strategy in place, or else he would not be so at ease on ordinary days. With this thought, the Blood Prison Great Saint's heart gradually calmed. He looked again at Gu An's clay molding, finding deep significance in every movement. Today, his master had shown him the fate of the world, surely not acting on a whim. Perhaps it was a warning to him. Under the serene and tranquil years, a catastrophe was always brewing. The Blood Prison Great Saint felt sorrow for this world. Major sects and imperial dynasties were ceaselessly vying, chasing after the celestial mandate and heavenly Tao. Yet, in the end, in the face of absolute power, as heaven and earth perished together, all their scheming would be rendered meaningless. Previously, the Blood Prison Great Saint wondered why, with such formidable power, his master chose to cultivate in seclusion. Now he understood. His master had seen through everything. The Blood Prison Great Saint gazed at the clay in Gu In's hands and began to reflect, pondering his own past. After dispersing the destiny of the immortal dynasty, the celestial spirit god sat down to meditate once more, and Gu In no longer paid attention to external affairs, focusing solely on his current task. What followed would be the most chaotic period for the world. Facing such chaos, the Holy Court, contrary to its normal behavior, did not aggressively annex the territories left by the immortal dynasty, but began to withdraw, pulling back to the sacred domain. This further fueled the madness of the world's forces, all eager to seize this opportunity to ascend. The supreme sect and the Taizong dynasty were no different. From the highest echelons to the common folk, everyone knew that this was an unprecedented opportunity, a decisive moment for the pattern of the world. All internal conflicts were set aside, and those in power grew increasingly bold and ambitious as each day passed. While the supreme sect was frantically exploring the outer realms, Long Qing, on the other hand, was confined to the Third Medicine Valley by Long Jun. On this evening, seated in meditation on a cliff, Long Qing could not help but open his eyes and turn to look at Long Jun, who was reading nearby. Long Jun was holding the Investiture of the Gods, engrossed in the book, which greatly irritated Long Qing. He had read that book many times over, yet he was still reading it. Long Qing could not comprehend why Long Jun, after imparting the celestial dragon Dharma aspect to him, did not take his teaching seriously and even forbade him from venturing out. Most importantly, in the face of Long Jun, even Candlestar dared not utter a word. Studying the celestial dragon Dharma aspect was for the destiny of the Long family. Long Qing was willing to accept this mission, but sometimes he wondered if living just to break the family's curse was truly meaningful. He thought of his master, who never rushed his cultivation when he was present. Now he was being forced to cultivate by someone else. He finally understood his master's words, that bearing karma was not so easy. The time before recovering his destiny pattern was the happiest of his life. The longer he practiced the celestial dragon technique, the more he yearned for the past. No matter how patient one is, there comes a day of eruption. Long Qing was about to burst, and he couldn't help but say, "With the world in such turmoil, do you think the battle court will still come as you said?" Long Jun, without even lifting his head, said, "It has already arrived. It's in the Holy Court." Long Qing frowned and asked, "Then why haven't they made their move? Killing you would be acting on behalf of the battle court. But this world holds opportunities they cannot resist. That's also why I chose to come to this era. Right now, I can do a lot." Long Jun's answer silenced Long Qing. Irresistible opportunities. He wanted them too. He wanted to become stronger, to be renowned across the world, to live a spirited life. Suddenly, Long Jun asked, "Do you think the Taoist Hong Jun in this book endured countless lonely years to achieve the Tao, or did he struggle through hardships and persevere to attain it?" Hearing this, Long Qing couldn't help but roll his eyes. Could it be that Long Jun was so obsessed because he saw himself in Taoist Hong Jun? He had once been obsessed with the investiture of the gods, and naturally knew that Taoist Hong Jun was the strongest and most mystic presence within it. At least Taoist Hong Jun, when facing difficulties, didn't pin his hopes on future generations, quipped Long Qing. Upon hearing this, Long Jun fell silent. Only the sound of the wind remained atop the cliff. The more Long Qing thought about it, the more he became frustrated. Why should he bear the burden of the Long clan's mission? The debt of life was too great, forcing him to cultivate his ancestors' Dharma aspects to fight for him. Why was he so rebellious? If the ancestors were so powerful, how could the Long clan end up like this? Sir, the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Long Qing truly didn't believe that the Long clan had the strength to defy the battle court. The more he thought, the angrier he became, and with anger came despair in the depths of his heart. Qi blood surged, causing him to feel dizzy. The world in his eyes shook unceasingly. The dusk-lit celestial vault, so desolate and beautiful, it gave him a sense of facing the end. At that moment, he felt slightly relieved in his heart. If he were to fall now, it wouldn't be so bad. If life was for death, then why not die earlier? Long Qing gradually lost control of his body, beginning to topple to the side. A hand caught his head, preventing him from falling. In a daze, he saw a figure appear before him, standing on the edge of the cliff, back facing him. The figure was so majestic, exuding an earth-shattering presence, making Long Qing feel an unstoppable valor and indomitable spirit. Suddenly, Long Qing's world became clear again. He quickly regained his senses and control over his body, sitting up to find the figure before him gone, as if it were an illusion. The person supporting him was Long Jun. Long Qing hastened to his feet, looking around to find the figure he had just seen. For some unknown reason, he felt that the figure was very powerful, perhaps capable of solving the archenemy of the Long clan. Standing beside him, Long Jun asked, "What did you just see?" Without thinking, Long Qing replied, "I saw someone. His back was turned to me." Unable to find the figure, Long Qing turned to Long Jun and, seeing a look of relief on Long Jun's face, couldn't help but ask, "Do you know who that person was?" Long Jun replied, "When you cultivate the celestial dragon Dharma aspect, the first thing you'll see is Emperor Longxin, which is my father's image." Actually, to cultivate the celestial dragon Dharma aspect, you need intense emotional stimulation, so I didn't give you specific guidance. I wanted to wait for you to initiate it first. Emperor Longxin. Long Qing murmured to himself, the figure from before reflected in his eyes. Long Jun eyed him and said, "Actually, the Long clan is very strong. Many died from accidents or passed away prematurely. If the Long clan were so weak against the battle court, they wouldn't have pressed us so relentlessly." These words eased the resentment in Long Qing's heart significantly. Long Qing couldn't help asking, "Is Emperor Longxin the strongest of our Long clan?" Long Jun shook his head and said, "The most powerful feature of the celestial dragon Dharma aspect is that the ancestors you summon might reveal the limits of their strength, because different people will summon ancestors of different strengths when they cultivate the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. If you can summon my son, we will have even more hope. Of course, if you could summon all of the Long family members, that would be the most hopeful moment." Long Qing frowned and asked, "Are you sure your son is stronger than Emperor Longxin?" He could not forget the figure of Emperor Longxin, so unbeatable. He did not believe any other member of the Long family could be stronger than Emperor Longxin. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 541. Just enough to wipe out the celestial and earthly immortals. Once you can cultivate his Dharma aspect, you will understand that he can bear all hope. Long Jun turned his head towards the distance, speaking softly, his eyes revealing a sense of nostalgia. Long Qing then continued to fantasize about Emperor Longxin. After a while, he began to inquire about the deeds of Emperor Longxin. Since Longqing had already entered the threshold of the celestial dragon Dharma aspect, Long Jun's attitude had changed, and he began to recount the deeds of Emperor Longxin, with Longqing listening intently. The more stories Longqing heard, the calmer his heart became. Understanding the past of the Long clan could help him deepen his understanding of the Long clan and strengthen his sense of honor and disgrace. In my view, throughout the ages, the Long clan deserve their fate today. When powerful, they oppressed all around and also gave birth to many extreme prodigies. However, the Long clan should not be oppressed by the battle court. Breaking the Long clan's fate and destroying the battle court also counts as settling our karmic ties, since the battle court was created by us, but they committed sins in the name of the battle court. It began with the Long clan and must end with the Long clan. Long Jun spoke earnestly, pausing before saying, "Your descendants should no longer bear the surname Long." Upon hearing this, Long Qing did not shake his head in denial. He was still immersed in the stories of Emperor Longxin. Though he had only seen the back of Emperor Longxin, Long Qing was instantly awed by him, developing a strong sense of adoration. He began to look forward to the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. At least once he had mastered the celestial dragon Dharma aspect, he could witness the elegance of Emperor Longxin. 100 years later, the human world was a new landscape. The nine-spirit continent was finally entangled in the maelstrom of great chaos, with more and more great cultivators fleeing into this continent, causing the winds and clouds of the continent to surge. On the edge of the continent, on a beach, two women descended from the sky, and, upon landing, they quickly sat down to start cultivating energy. One of them, dressed in green with delicate makeup, only her hair was slightly messy, while the other, dressed in white and even more beautiful, resembled a fairy of the human world, but her face was completely pale, clearly having sustained serious injuries. The green-clad woman opened her eyes and looked at the white-clad woman, asking, "Sister, are we safe here?" The white-clad woman, named Li Xuanyu, slowly opened her eyes, turned her head towards the distance, and said faintly, "Hard to say." The green-clad woman, named Tang Kai, furrowed her brows upon hearing Li Xuanyu's words and sighed heavily. "How much longer must we run, and how can Li find us?" Tang Kai asked anxiously. Li Xuanyu did not answer. She closed her eyes again to continue healing. Seeing this, Tang Kai also closed her eyes to heal. Time quickly passed. About an hour later, suddenly a strong wind blew from the end of the ocean, startling both women into opening their eyes. "Let's go. It seems they don't plan to let us go," Li Xuanyu said as she stood up, her figure trembling, almost falling, but Tang Kai promptly supported her. Without delay, Tang Kai summoned a magical treasure and helped Li Xuanyu to fly deeper into the continent. Sir the Novel Fire, net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Shortly after they had left, countless black crows attacked from the sky, swarming and covering the heavens, their speed extremely fast as they quickly flew into the continent. Tang Kai, who was maneuvering the magical treasure, seemed to sense something, turning her head to look, her face changing drastically with panic filling her eyes. "They're so fast, what should we do?" Tang Kai looked at Li Xuanyu next to her and asked in a low voice. Although Li Xuanyu had suffered severe injuries, she had always been Tang Kai's support. If it weren't for the need to protect her along the way, Li Xuanyu would not have sustained such serious injuries. Li Xuanyu's face remained calm as she said, "Leave me behind, and you escape. They're mainly targeting me." Upon hearing this, Tang Kai was immediately agitated and said, "What nonsense are you talking about? I promised Liya that I must keep you safe. Either we die together or you live, and later, find Liya to avenge me," Li Xuanyu said, her tone unflinching. Tang Kai fell silent. Li Xuanyu grabbed Tang Kai's wrist with one hand and stared at her steadfastly. Tang Kai clenched her teeth, manipulated her magical treasure, and flew downward. The two women landed in a forest, and Tang Kai helped Li Xuanyu to sit down in front of a tree. "Let's hurry and get moving. Stop dawdling," Li Xuanyu said as she sat down, her face growing even paler, but she still urged. Tang Kai stood up, walked a few steps outward, then stopped in her tracks. She clenched her sleeves, unable to leave. Li Xuanyu looked at her, a trace of relief flashing in her eyes. Just as she was about to speak, a voice came from deep within the forest. "Are you outsiders?" Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai both turned their heads to look, and saw a yellow-robed woman who looked like a fairy walking out from the forest with a bamboo basket in her hand, a gentle smile on her face. The newcomer was an Xian. Li Xuanyu frowned and examined an Xian closely. Tang Kai asked, "Who are you? Why are you here?" After all, she possessed a Nirvana realm cultivation level, and in her perception, there were no living beings within 1,000 li. How could an Xian have approached them silently? How could she not be cautious? An Xian smiled and said, "My name is an Xian. As I was passing by, I calculated that I have a connection with you too, so I wanted to come and help." She was curious in her heart, not knowing which one was Elder Li's sister and which was Elder Li's beloved. Her gaze fell on Li Xuanyu, whose facial features slightly resembled Elder Li. She guessed that she must be Elder Li's sister. Li Xuanyu always felt the name, and Xian sounded familiar, as if she had heard it somewhere before, but she couldn't remember. Perhaps some cultivator had mentioned a similar-sounding name. "How can you help us? Do you know what we are fleeing from?" Tang Kai asked cautiously. An Xian smiled and said, "You have no choice. You can't abandon her, can you?" Tang Kai was silent. Just then, countless black crows attacked from the depths of the forest, like darkness swallowing everything, causing Tang Kai's face to change dramatically and Li Xuanyu to instinctively raise her hand. An Xian quickly turned around, a long pen appearing in her hand. With a swing, the crows turned into flying ash, forming a black mist that spread through the forest. Tang Kai's eyes widened, and even Li Xuanyu was startled by Nzin's action. The wind blew in Nzin's long hair and dress. She slightly tilted her head, glanced at Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai from the corner of her eye, and smiled. "Does this count as helping you?" Tang Kai said dazedly. "It counts, but the real pursuers are still behind us." An Xian asked, "What realm is he in?" "Heaven and earth flying immortal realm." "It's a coincidence the pen in my hand is just enough to extinguish a celestial and earthly immortal." An Xian raised the fate pen in her hand, smiling triumphantly. Sunlight poured through the gaps in the leaves, casting light on her, making her appear so exceptional in Tang Kai's eyes. Such a demeanor she had only seen in Liya before, which was an absolute confidence that any trouble could be solved. Even Li Xuanyu had to admit that an Xian truly possessed a convincing aura. She suddenly remembered she had heard the name an Xian before, apparently from Liya, but why she brought up the name still wasn't clear, as it was a matter from long ago. If this woman knew Liya, then she could be trusted. An Xian put away her pen, then turned and smiled. "Come with me. It'll take you to a place to heal. It's your first time on a 9-spirit continent, right? You can stay here for a while. Perhaps you will find some serendipity." Tang Kai hurriedly gave her thanks and asked, "Senior, why do you want to help us?" She couldn't be at ease without asking. An Xian blinked and said, "I know Liya. Is that enough?" Upon hearing this, Tang Kai did not show joy. Instead, suspicion appeared in her eyes. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 542. This will be the greatest opportunity of your lives, Night fell. An Xian was temporarily staying in a monastery with Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai, where a fire blazed in the courtyard, its flickering light casting shadows on the walls. Tang Kai watched an Xian intently, her eyes filled with hostility, while an Xian admired the fate pen. Having used the fate pen more than once or twice, an Xian greatly enjoyed the vast power it contained. Unfortunately, after each use, her master would take it back, so she treasured the time she had with it and wanted to investigate why the pen was so formidable. As for Tang Kai's gaze, an Xian had noticed it long ago and could guess Tang Kai's thoughts, but she intentionally offered no explanation. Because it was fun, Tang Kai treasured elderly like a treasure, but an Xian felt that elderly was just so and nowhere near as formidable as her own master. Every time her master mentioned elderly, he would describe how elderly got beaten up, using him as a negative example. So how could she possibly like elderly? Thinking of this, the corners of Nzin's mouth couldn't help but lift. Seeing an Xian smile, Tang Kai grew even angrier, but she couldn't lash out. After all, an Xian had saved their lives. While meditating and healing, Li Xuanyu kept thinking about the name and Xian. Finally, she remembered, and opening her eyes, she looked toward an Xian and asked, "Are you Guan's disciple?" Mentioning Guan, the blurry face in her memory gradually became clear. It had been over 9,000 years since she left the Tai Tsong continent, and she had never returned. Her meeting with Liya was purely coincidental on an island, and Liya did not reveal that Guan was the supporting Dao sword venerable. Li Xuanyu could not associate Guan with the supporting Dao sword venerable either, since when she knew Guan, he was just a medicine boy, and she had even helped him manage an introduction to take care of a cave mansion. Back then, Guan had run around for a few spirit stones. Later, however, she had realized that Guan was not simple and hid secrets, but she never thought of him in terms of the supporting Dao sword venerable. An Xian turned her head towards her and smiled brightly. "Yes, elderly, my master has mentioned you too. He said that when he was young, you helped him a lot." Hearing this, Li Xuanyu was sure she hadn't misheard, and a smile appeared on her face as she said reflectively, "I didn't really help him much, just lending a hand. How has he been doing lately?" An Xian replied, "He's doing well, don't worry. Could it be that he is also on this continent?" "No, that's not the case. No one knows where he has gone." An Xian shook her head. This wasn't her being secretive, but rather Guan genuinely wanting to hide his whereabouts, not wanting to attract trouble, and she definitely couldn't cause trouble for Guan. She was curious about the image of Gu and in Li Xuanyu's mind, so she started to share the stories Guan had told her, and Li Xuanyu also fell into reminiscence. Tang Kai was also captivated by the stories an Xian told and gradually forgot her jealousy. Hearing that Guan was Li Ya's junior brother, Tang Kai grew even more interested, as she was very curious about everything related to Li Ya. But unfortunately, before she could learn more about Li Ya, she had parted ways with him. The stories an Xian told were those Guan had shared with her. They might have seemed mundane, but on such a night, they brought Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai a sense of warmth and a touch of happiness. In Li Xuanyu's mind, Guan also gradually became clearer, and the old memories surfaced. Remembering how reserved Guan had been in front of her, a smile also appeared on her face. Over 9,000 years had passed, and many old acquaintances were buried in the earth. But Guan was still alive, and she was genuinely happy and surprised that Guan could teach such a disciple. A millennium passes just like a flicker in the human world. 9,000 years brought about such great changes. When an Xian finished speaking, Tang Kai curiously asked, "What is Guan's cultivation level now?" An Xian glanced at her, smiling radiantly. "How would I know? See this pen? This is his magical treasure." While speaking, an Xian raised the fate pen in her hand. Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai both looked towards the fate pen in Nzin's hand, unable to forget the sight of an Xian wielding the pen to eradicate a group of demons. Those black crows were no ordinary creatures. Even a loose immortal hit by them will be drained of all their blood essence. Just as an Xian was showing off the fate pen, Guan, who was far away in the Taoist field of the beginningless, lay reading a book while listening to their conversation. "Senior Sister Li, it really has been many years." Guan lay on a chair, a book in his hands, the corners of his mouth slightly upturned. That Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai were able to come to the Nine-Spirit Continent was due to his guidance, using celestial signs to bring them to the Nine-Spirit Continent coincidentally. And along the way, their survival from numerous brushes with death also had Gu An's secret assistance. Back then, Li Xuanyu indeed had helped Guan, so if he could lend a hand with just a simple effort, he naturally would not be stingy. Helping Li Xuanyu was also for Li Ya's sake. With Li Ya's sister and future wife in danger, how could he not rescue them? The reason he led the two women to the Nine-Spirit Continent was because a great catastrophe was about to come outside, and only on the Nine-Spirit Continent would they be completely safe. Guan closed his book and shut his eyes, lazily saying, "After you finish your act, I take the stage, and the heroes of the world take turns. But who can really see through how deep the waters of this world are? Celestial Spirit God, I look forward to clashing with you." His voice echoed only within the room. He was speaking to himself. Amidst the mountains, Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai stood on a slope, looking at the magnificent scene ahead. Both women remained silent. Sir, the novel fire. Inti website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Following their gaze, in front of the mountains appeared a gigantic chasm, stretching to the ends of heaven and earth. The mountains on either side, too, had been pierced, as if a dragon comparable in size to the mountains had rolled over them, leaving behind this broken landscape. An Xian descended from the sky. Casually playing with the fate pen, she chuckled, "Celestial and earthly immortals are just this, huh?" Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai had been on the Nine-Spirit Continent for several months, and today the mastermind who had been pursuing them had finally come to kill them. After a round of negotiations, an Xian, unable to stand the other side's ranting, chose to eradicate them. Tang Kai opened her mouth, but found herself unable to speak. The supreme great power that was the cause of her despair, just like that, was dead. Li Xuanyu looked at the fate pen with a complex expression in her eyes. Is Gu An's cultivation level now at least higher than the heaven and earth flying immortal realm? She couldn't understand. She felt that her own adventures were numerous, and in her view, only Li Ya's growth rate was faster than hers. In fact, she always believed she was second to none. But what she witnessed today overturned her understanding. She felt that her peers couldn't possibly possess such power, let alone slaughtering celestial and earthly immortals. Even killing wandering immortals seemed unbelievable. An Xian looked at them and smiled. "Settle down in the Nine-Spirit Continent. It will change your lives. I want to accompany you further." With that, she turned and walked away, but after a few steps, she stopped again. "Let me remind you once more. Stay here. This will be the greatest opportunity of your lives. If you insist on leaving, you will regret it for the rest of your lives." An Xian leaped up, transforming into a streak of light and disappearing into the horizon. Tang Kai couldn't help but look at Li Xuanyu and asked, "What should we do? Listen to her?" Li Xuanyu looked in the direction an Xian had left and asked, "Do you want to have cultivation like hers, to stand shoulder to shoulder with Li Ya in the future, rather than always chasing behind him?" These words stunned Tang Kai. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 543: The Descent of the Supreme Demon Realm in the Depths of the Cosmos. Countless meteorites, ablaze with fiery flames, tore through the great Daos mists, rushing unstoppably in the same direction, creating a sight of unparalleled grandeur. The appearance of this group of meteorites alarmed the mighty beings within the universe, as countless divine senses reached out toward them. Upon an unmoving meteorite, Xia, from Human World Peak, was meditating in this area. He suddenly opened his eyes and was immediately startled by the swarm of meteorites approaching from the depths of the universe. He could feel the powerful forces contained within those meteorites, which even instinctively made him feel fearful. He immediately cast a spell to form a barrier, concealing himself. Soon, meteorites skimmed over him, their terrifying force causing the meteorite beneath him to tremble. Is that, by Xia's pupils suddenly narrowed, and he saw a figure standing on one of the meteorites. Could this be a force? Looking in the direction they were flying, by Xia's expression darkened. That direction was precisely toward the celestial spirit great world. Thinking about the changes in the celestial spirit great world over the years, by Xia's heart filled with worry. He always felt that the tribulation of the celestial spirit great world was not due to internal factors. It seemed that some supremely powerful entity was manipulating everything. The death of young immortal emperor was the best proof. After all the meteorites disappeared into the darkness, Bai Xia hesitated for a moment, then finally flew in the opposite direction. He chose to preserve himself. At the same time, in the celestial spirit great world, beings of high realm also sensed the threat from beyond heaven. In the third medicine valley, Long Jun stood on the cliff, gazing up at the celestial vault, his expression serene. Candlestar appeared beside him and whispered, "It's the people from the supreme demon realm. I sense the aura of the supreme demon emperor, their current leader." "Such a vast scheme," Long Jun murmured. "They want to eliminate every thorn in their side. The destiny of the heavenly Tao has changed." "Changed? What do you mean?" Candlestar asked, confused. Long Jun answered, "The future I saw has already altered. At the very least, the supreme demon realm should not have appeared." Hearing this, Candlestar furrowed his brows. In his eyes, Long Jun's cultivation level was profound. He could traverse from the past to the present, and his Tao practice might not be inferior to the Silent Destruction God Emperor. At least the Silent Destruction God Emperor did not possess such a capability to cross through antiquity and the present. Facing the anomalies in the heavenly Tao, what should we do? Candlestar asked. He had already bet everything on Long Qing, and there was no turning back, and since Long Jun was Long Qing's ancestor, the two stood on the same side. He now greatly trusted Long Jun, continued to lie low, and wait for that young one to master the celestial dragon Dharma aspect, answered Long Jun, his voice calm. Candlestar then inquired, "Should we start preparing a concubine for him?" "It can begin now. After all, I cannot see the upcoming situation clearly either. It's better to be prepared earlier." "Good. I will start the selection process." At the boundless mountain range, Liya and Sword Annihilation Ancestor reached the edge of the forest, looking out over the magnificent mountains ahead. Liya turned and looked at Sword Annihilation Ancestor, asking, "Master, did you feel it?" Sword Annihilation Ancestor furrowed his brows tightly and replied, "It's the aura of the supreme demon realm. Their goal is to devour great heaven and earth, and now they dare set their sights on the celestial spirit great world. There must be something fishy behind this. The supreme demon realm? Are they formidable?" Lee asked curiously. Sword Annihilation Ancestor began to describe the supreme demon realm. The supreme demon realm was born before the shattering of the celestial spirit great world. They once were an overlord-level power in a great world. After the shattering of the great world, they founded the supreme demon realm, building various demon cities to invade the great heaven and earth, refining magical treasures with the power of the great world, and transforming the blood sacrifices of all living beings into their own Tao practice. Even the heavenly demon within the silent extinction domain seems negligible compared to the supreme demon realm. Listening to the power and style of the supreme demon realm, Leo also felt worried. Such demon race forces descending upon the celestial spirit great world were definitely not benevolent. Sword Annihilation Ancestor looked at Liya and said, "I will pass on to you one last divine skill. After this, I truly have to leave." The two had parted several times, and each time Liya faced peril, Sword Annihilation Ancestor always couldn't help but intervene. This time, Sword Annihilation Ancestor spoke earnestly, making Liya feel his determination. Liya couldn't help but ask, "Master, where are you going?" "To the place from whence I came," Sword Annihilation Ancestor answered calmly. "What about the cause and effect you spoke of earlier? How should I handle it?" Hearing Leah mention the conditions of their discipleship, Sword Annihilation Ancestor deeply gazed at him and said, "Do not deliberately think about it. As you grow stronger, the cause and effect of your master will naturally involve you. Remember, this divine skill must not be used unless it's a matter of life and death." Seeing his master so serious, Leah could only nod, acknowledging his words. His heart, however, was filled with anticipation. The Supreme Demon Realm. He wanted to see how powerful the Supreme Demon Realm was, what made it capable of frightening his master away. Boom! Heaven and earth trembled, startling everyone within the Taoist field of the beginningless. They gathered in Gu An's courtyard to discuss the unusual disturbances in heaven and earth. They could see many meteors from outer heaven falling on the horizon, a magnificent sight, followed by a nearly world-ending terrifying pressure. Sir, the novel fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Is this demonic chi? Could it be another invasion by the heavenly demon? It feels different from the aura of the heavenly demon, such a heavy scent of blood. I wonder if there are others besides our master and young immortal emperor who can save this world from continuous trials. There are countless strong beings in the world, but few who dare shoulder the safety of all living beings. While they were discussing worldly affairs, the door opened and Guan walked out from inside the house. Everyone immediately turned and greeted him. Guan surveyed them and asked, "How about you all go out and save the world?" As soon as he said this, everyone felt awkward, and Sheng Tian and Chun Chuan, who had been very vocal earlier, were blushing. Of course, Blood Prison Great Saint, who had been the loudest, just grinned shamelessly. Shen Jun was also snickering. She hadn't joined the discussion, so she didn't feel embarrassed. Go back to your cultivations. The calamity outside won't affect the dojo. With these words, Guan walked towards the courtyard gate. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other and breathed a sigh of relief. The aura from the Supreme Demon Realm was indeed too strong. Even while staying inside the dojo, they instinctively felt fear, making it difficult to cultivate peacefully. Hearing Gu An's words, they completely let go of their worries. The oppression from the Supreme Demon Realm was far less than their trust in Gu, and Shun Jun quickly caught up with Gu An's steps. After leaving the courtyard, they walked into the forest along the mountain path. Gu An's courtyard was located at the mountain's peak. The flowers and grass were lush, and the trees were tall. Walking among the trees, the speckled sunlight that fell looked so serene and mystical. If I paint the demons outside right now, will it cause trouble? Shenzhen stepped forward, walking shoulder to shoulder with Guan, and asked softly. Guan smiled and said, "You're scared too? Just paint if you want to." Hearing this, Shenzhen's face lit up with a smile. She curiously asked, "Such terrifying demonic chi doesn't intimidate you? What kind of being is worthy of being your opponent?" A breeze blew through the forest, cooling Gu An's face. "My opponent has already appeared." Gu An's statement spiked Shun Zhen's curiosity. Unfortunately, her cultivation level was too low. In the previous disasters of a human world, she hadn't seen those world-shaking demonic figures. Search the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 544. Neither God nor demon dark clouds churned, and thunder rumbled incessantly as the vast ocean rose in angry waves, and heavy rain scattered with the wind. Amid those alarming surges, one could vaguely make out the shocking sight of corpses. Looking into the distance, one could see a fierce battle unfolding between the celestial sea. Countless cultivators besieged a demon tens of thousands of feet tall. The demon, human in form, was covered in black fur, dressed in black armor, and wore a horned iron helmet, resembling a war god from the demon realm. Wielding a terrifying greatsword, it could cleave the sea and slash the heavens with absolute, tyrannical might. Cultivators' bodies continuously fell, crashing into the gloomy sea and quickly being dispersed by the churning water. Miles away at the edge of the nine-spirit continent, Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai stood on a cliff, watching the battle from afar. Waves splashed against the shore, wetting their dresses, but they paid it no mind. How terrifying this demon! Are such demons rampant all over the world? Tang Kai couldn't help but look at Li Xuanyu, exclaiming in awe. Several days ago, numerous meteors from outer heaven had descended, shaking the earth, and not long after, the human world faced a catastrophe. Only a few days had passed, and demons from outer heaven threatened nine-spirit continent. Li Xuanyu replied, "The demonic chi from outside is indeed heavy. No wonder an Exine wanted us to stay." Tang Kai couldn't help but ask, "Sister, you don't think Liu will get into trouble, do you? With his temperament, he's sure to dive right into the thick of it. I'm really afraid he might get seriously injured again." "Don't worry, he has his own fortune. His life is much harder than either of ours." Li Xuanyu shook her head slightly, and, saying so, she turned to leave. Tang Kai took one more look at the distant battle at the edge of the sea, then followed Li Xuanyu's steps. She was curious about the demon's cultivation level, but unfortunately, Li Xuanyu couldn't see through it either. Their experiences were but a microcosm of the world. Every continent and sea was plagued by demons from the supreme demon realm, with countless beings meeting tragic deaths every day. The skies of a human world darkened, signaling a tribulation sweeping across the entire great heaven and earth. The supreme demon realm came only to slaughter. In the sacred domain, within a palace, 7 figures gathered, staring at the throne of the silent destruction god emperor in silence for a long time. One of the women broke the silence. "The master hasn't come back yet. Could something have happened?" At these words, the faces of the other 6 turned grim. The silent destruction god emperor had been missing for many years. They had not been worried at first, but now with the attack of the supreme demon realm and the god emperor's absence, they couldn't help but be concerned. The supreme demon realm has always hidden in the shadows. Now that they have launched a large-scale invasion of the celestial spirit great world, I fear someone has been guiding them from behind, and that person is likely that one. A middle-aged man inhaled deeply and spoke gravely. He didn't specify who that one was, but everyone understood. The celestial spirit god, the supreme existence of this great thousand world. Once again, the hall fell into silence. Even with the lowest among them being profound yuan-free immortals, the mere thought of the celestial spirit god sent chills down their spines, quelling any thoughts of rebellion or scheming. Just then, the palace began to tremble, and the candles flickered violently, threatening to go out at any moment. All 7 turned to look towards the doorway. Without the holy court, the celestial court appears stronger, yet seems to have lost its former keen edge. A cold voice came from outside the hall, like a muffled thunder that echoed throughout the sacred domain, audible to all beings within the holy court. The 7 in the hall looked at one another again, none volunteering to speak first. More than the safety of the holy court, they wanted to know where the silent destruction god emperor had gone. They didn't even consider the possibility of the emperor being dead. In their minds, the silent destruction god emperor was an immortal being. If a power such as the Holy Court could come under attack from the supreme demon realm, what about other sects? The major sects of the Tai Tasan continent also faced tribulations. The supreme sect, having lost the protection of the supporting Tao sword venerable for over 9,000 years, was once again drawn into the defense battle. Spring gave way to autumn, and 300 years passed in the blink of an eye. The human world entered a bizarre state where demons roamed freely, and it was difficult to distinguish between human and ghost. All living beings were living in constant fear. On the Tai Tasan continent, within the North Sea mountain ridge, profound mystery sat in front of the pill furnace in the courtyard, looking up at the overcast clouds, his face full of worry. He turned his head to look at the mountain god on the eaves and asked, Mountain God, is there no one in this world who can drive out the supreme demon realm? 300 years had passed, and the name of the supreme demon realm had spread far and wide. Everyone knew that the evil demons ravaging the human world came from the supreme demon realm. The immortal dynasty had fallen, the holy court had been slaughtered by the supreme demon realm, and the entire world was shrouded in their darkness, with clouds so dense that hope was obscured. Although profound mystery lived in seclusion in the North Sea mountain ridge, occasionally cultivators and demons would pass by, which allowed him to stay informed of major events in the world. Now, even the Tai Tsang continent was plagued by minions of the supreme demon realm. The powerful demons of the supreme demon realm, once they descended into the human world, recruited many minions. They were also able to nurture more demons, swiftly expanding the influence of the supreme demon realm to cover the entire world. Of course there is, Guan casually replied while sitting on the eaves, whittling a bamboo stick. Otherwise, there would be no living creatures left in the human world by now. With the invasion of the supreme demon realm, although the human world suffered greatly, it also gave birth to numerous heroes. Now, many great cultivators were preparing to besiege the main city established by the supreme demon realm in the human world, forcing the supreme demon realm on the defensive. CTH Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Guan was but a pawn to the supreme demon realm. The celestial spirit god sought to use the power of the supreme demon realm to force out the heaven and earth Tao fruit. It seemed that the celestial spirit god could not personally annihilate all living beings. It was as though some force in the unseen depths was restraining the celestial spirit god, which made Guan even more curious about the celestial court that lurked behind the celestial spirit god. What sort of order did the celestial court have, and how were its classes of strength and weakness divided? After hearing this, the worry in profound mystery's eyes faded. Having secluded himself in the mountains for over 9,000 years, he too had his own insights. He had felt compassion for the suffering of passers-by, but as time went on, he realized that he couldn't change anything. Moreover, suffering would not vanish. People would always suffer, and the difference lay in whether or not he could see it. A high-pitched dragon's roar echoed between heaven and earth. Profound Mystery looked up and saw a dragon tail appearing in the cloudy sky, twisting like a mountain range, a magnificent sight to behold. This dragon had green scales yet radiated golden light. Filled with curiosity, Profound Mystery asked, "Is this being a god or a demon?" Since the descent of the supreme demon realm, he had occasionally seen celestial beasts appearing, including dragons, but this particular dragon tail gave him a feeling there was an indescribable divinity present. Guan, wearing a mask, looked up and said, "Neither god nor demon, merely a lost soul." That was not a true dragon, but someone's Dharma aspect. Guan was somewhat curious as well. Could there truly be such a prodigy within the Long clan? This individual was neither Long Xin nor Long Ya. Guan's gaze stretched out toward the third medicine valley of the Supreme Sect. In Long Qing's practice of the celestial dragon technique, there had been progress. Within Long Jun's domain, he had condensed 12 Dharma aspects, one of which was wrapped by a golden dragon, its aura towering. A lost soul. Profound Mystery's curiosity grew, and he stared intently at that dragon tail. At that moment, not only he but creatures across the continent were looking up at that dragon tail. Mortal spirits even thought a true dragon had descended to exterminate demons for them. More and more mortal spirits knelt down, kowtowing towards the dragon tail, crying out and praying. Inside Long Jun's domain, it appeared no different from the surrounding cliffs of the Third Medicine Valley, but in reality, they were in an entirely separate space. Long Qing opened his eyes and turned his head to look, and he was suddenly taken aback. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 545. Heavenly Tao Peak, Celestial Emperor, who is he? As he gazed at the Dharma aspect that was enveloping the golden dragon, Long Qing asked Long Jun. Long Jun looked at the golden dragon Dharma aspect, his expression quite complex, and said, "Is the previous you, your ancestor? Like you, he's a remnant of a long clan. I crossed through the years to assist him. He failed, but not before leaving a lineage for the Long clan, offering a glimmer of hope." Long Qing hadn't expected that Long Jun had sought out other ancestors before. He realized he was not the most unique. "Can you tell me his story?" Long Qing asked, curious to learn about the life of each Dharma aspect he managed to manifest. Long Jun, although he lived in the distant past, had the ability to see the lives of all his descendants. This time, he didn't hold back and began to recount the life story of this member of the Long clan. Long Mang, born without parents or even the protection of servants left by his family, was abandoned in the Great Thousand World and was taken in by a cultivator from sect. The first half of his life was relatively stable until he awakened the bloodline of the Long clan, which drew the attention of the battle court. His master was turned to ash, his wife and children were slaughtered, and his fellow sect members were almost entirely massacred. Had Long Jun not intervened in time, the lineage of the Long clan would have ended with Long Mang. After rescuing Long Mang, Long Jun began to teach him the secret techniques of the Long clan. During his cultivation, Long Mang developed his own understanding of the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. The golden dragon showcased by the Long Mang Dharma aspect was a manifestation of will, allowing him to be more focused and powerful in battle. Once, Long Mang had brought boundless hope to Long Jun. Unfortunately, Long Mang still met his end at the hands of the silent destruction god Emperor, and his grandson even fell victim to the Emperor's possession. The silent destruction god Emperor, always him. What exactly is his relation to the battle court? Why does he continuously possess us? Long Qing asked indignantly, his eyes brimming with murderous intent. Long Jun replied, "He has no direct connection to the battle court, but he covets the bloodline talent of the Long clan. Perhaps he has reached his own limits and can ascend no further." Long Qing took in a deep breath, his fists clenched tightly, and said, "I hope I get the chance to kill him with my own hands in this life." Long Jun remained silent, offering no further conversation. Then, Long Qing closed his eyes and continued to cultivate the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. Since the advent of the supreme demon realm, he had felt a sense of crisis. Setting aside the vast power of the supreme sect, he began to dedicate himself entirely to mastering the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. Hearing of Long Mang's deeds, Long Qing's resolve grew even stronger. He had to master the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. He had to eradicate the battle court. He had to slay the silent destruction god Emperor, and he had to resolve the fate of the Long clan. Far away at the mountain god temple, Guan stood up after listening to Long Mang's story. He bid farewell to profound, mysterious Zhenren and then vanished from the eaves. Afterward, Guan spent half a day at Immortal Seeking Island before leisurely returning to the Taoist field of the beginningless. The mischief of demons had made the atmosphere on Immortal Seeking Island even tenser. The number of guards doubled, ready to fend off any attacks by evil demons at a moment's notice. As Guan walked through the forest, he appeared to be leisurely strolling, but in reality, he was calculating the destiny of heaven and earth. The final battle between him and the celestial spirit god was drawing closer. Once the supreme demon realm lures out the heaven and earth Tao fruit, an era that had lasted nearly 10,000 years would come to an end. If Guan didn't act, the celestial spirit great world would certainly be obliterated. Regardless of how many great cultivators there were in the world, or how high the talent of the prodigies, none would matter in the face of the celestial spirit god. Guan looked at his attribute panel. His lifespan had reached over 860 billion years. He was full of confidence. Compared to the celestial spirit gods, he was now more curious about the existence that had created the celestial spirit great world and where it was hiding. After the arrival of the supreme demon realm, the celestial doubt destiny of the great heaven and earth started to dissipate, gaining a void and ethereal destiny, similar to that of heaven and earth, yet with an added vitality belonging to living beings. Both the celestial Tao golden core and the heaven and earth Tao fruit still existed, proving that the existence which had pioneered the celestial spirit great world had not completely perished. It was merely waiting for the opportunity to resurrect. Whether the celestial Tao light layer that enveloped the great heaven and earth was for protection or restraint would soon reveal its answer. Late at night, a demon cloud shrouded the sky, preventing living beings on earth from seeing a single star. Within a valley surrounded by mountains, Xianxia meditated by the lake, her gaze lost in the shimmering water surface. The immortal seeker approached her, gathered up his robe, and sat down on the ground. "Are you afraid?" the immortal seeker asked softly, looking at the lake. Xianxia replied, "Of course I'm afraid. But if faced with the annihilation of heaven and earth, the collapse of the universe, I have no choice but to draw my sword against him." The immortal seeker smiled and said, "The situation in the world is becoming increasingly chaotic. The battle court, profound abyss, supreme demon realm, river of sword Tao, too many powers are vying for advantage. The more chaotic it is, the better. He is too arrogant, believing that his abilities are sufficient to suppress everything in the great thousand world." His tone carried a hint of mockery. Hearing this, Xianxia turned to look at him and asked, "Where exactly is the heaven and earth Tao fruit hidden, and when will it appear?" She had made all the preparations she could, just waiting for the heaven and earth Tao fruit to emerge. Sir, the novel_fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Its appearance depends on you, the immortal seeker said leisurely. When this world gives birth to its own profound yuan-free immortal, the heaven and earth Tao fruit will appear. You can enter the Taoist Xianxia immortal realm at any time. Plus, with the divine skills I've passed on to you, even if you only step into the role of profound yuan-free immortal briefly, the heaven and earth Tao fruit will reveal itself. Whether it's the great world or a smaller one, they all have their own carrying limits. This shattered world can only sustain one profound yuan-free immortal. After hearing this, Xianxia furrowed her brows, falling into hesitation. The immortal seeker continued, "Xianxia, do you know who the being at the pinnacle of the heavenly Tao, who commands the immortal gods, is? Who is it?" Such a being is known as the Celestial Emperor. To become the Celestial Emperor, one must endure 129,600 red dust reincarnation tribulations. The red dust reincarnation tribulation is different from the reincarnation tribulation you know of. No matter how many times you reincarnate, you must act as a savior to truly overcome one red dust reincarnation tribulation. To become a savior, you must wait for periods like the present. Zhu Zai's eyes widened upon hearing this. 129,600 red dust reincarnation tribulations. She couldn't fathom the lengthy hardships one would have to endure for so long. The immortal seeker said in a thought-provoking tone, "The predicament you are facing now may seem irreversible, but that exalted celestial emperor had to face 129,600 such crises to achieve enlightenment. Moreover, the crisis you face is far less severe because you have help and he did not. He had to start as a mortal, continuously breaking his own celestial mandate, only then capable of commanding the heavenly Tao. Your destiny pattern is unparalleled, and you have a heart aspiring to become the strongest, but you must realize that the path to being the mightiest is inevitably fraught with difficulties and requires unstoppable progress." Xianxia took a deep breath, and her eyes gradually became resolute. She was unsure of how powerful the Celestial Emperor was, but she knew she first had to overcome the hurdle of the celestial spirit gods. "Even if it means death, I have to fight, especially when there's no way back." The immortal seeker's tone was firm, as if he too was speaking to himself. Search the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 546. Master, what is the profound Yuan-free immortal? In the autumn season, the forest within the Taoist field of the beginningless gradually turned yellow and withered. Guan was instructing an Xian in her cultivation by a small river. The fairy, who appeared unfathomably profound in the eyes of Qinkuan's sect disciples, was now wearing a face full of distress, unable to grasp Guan's words. And all at once, an Xian felt ashamed. When she had been instructing the Qinkuan sect disciples, encountering those with dull spiritual root qualifications, she couldn't help feeling somewhat irritated. Yet looking at her master, facing the difficult task of teaching her, he remained composed and even kept a smile on his face. She felt that her own path was still long. Little did she know, the reason why Guan was smiling was that Leo was taking a beating again. While others teamed up to combat the evil demon from the supreme demon realm, he alone was being pursued by a group of evil demons. Even though Leo was being chased, he did not lose his verbal edge. Every time he was about to be caught, he would burst forth with even stronger power to break out of the encirclement. He was excited, thinking that he had broken through the limit of his physical body, undergoing a transformation amidst the battle. Guan heard his heart's voice and was even more amused. "Oh, senior brother, your potential is my doing." As Guan thought this, he turned to an Xian and said, "If you can't figure it out, then take your time. It's meaningless to think about other useless matters instead of focusing on enlightenment." Upon hearing this, an Xian nodded earnestly. She stopped her wild thoughts and began to review the previous Tao teachings with concentration. Guan noticed her refocused mind and felt satisfied with her attitude. Besides Leah, other old acquaintances were also more or less caught in trouble. In the current times, the scramble for opportunities inevitably involved combat and killing. What Guan was most concerned about, however, was Zhu Shi. Zhu Shi had already stepped into the realm of Taoist Xianxia immortal, his body exuding the aura of reincarnation, clearly having regained his destiny pattern from his previous life as a saint of Xianxia. It's worth mentioning that Zhu Shi did not go to outer heaven for his breakthrough. They were hidden in an ancient secret realm, and his breakthrough had caused quite a stir, covering the entire celestial spirit great world. However, since the supreme demon realm was causing chaos, the various sects did not fully mobilize to investigate the truth. Zhu Shi, who had reached the realm of Taoist Xianxia immortal, was preparing to impact an even higher realm, profound Yuan-free immortal. Guan was curious about the immortal seeker. Although he was a reincarnated being, his cultivation level was not strong in this life. How was he using other forces to help Zhu Shi break through by force? This power reminded Guan of the aura of the god of destruction. The god of destruction was also a god of the celestial court. In Black Profound Emperor's memories, the aura of the god of destruction was different from that of the celestial spirit god, but it was nonetheless related to the celestial Tao aura. The power that the immortal seeker borrowed was similar to that of the god of destruction, though there were also differences. Guan sensed carefully and felt that this power might be at the same level as the god of destruction and the celestial spirit god. Compared with the three, none was significantly stronger than the others. Interesting, it seems that there's some cause and effect contradiction within the celestial core itself. While observing the world, Guan repeated his teachings. The content an Xian had already memorized, but the reason he repeated it was that he infused his Tao intent into his voice, allowing the Tao listener to have new realizations with each listening of the same content. And Zen's spiritual root qualification was mediocre, but her comprehension was not bad. For her to have come this far, Guan had expended quite a bit of effort just teaching the Tao. Thankfully, it looked to be worth it. Let's see what kind of existence it is that has allowed the celestial spirit god to hold on until now. Guan looked at an Xian, thinking thus in his heart. In the following autumn, The nine-spirit continent remained relatively calm, but the Taitsong continent and other places around the world suffered even more intense shocks. The supreme demon realm seemed to sense something and became increasingly manic. All over the world, the multitude of living beings felt a sense of oppression. The world isn't really about to end, is it? At dusk, Xian stood beside Gu In, looking into the distance with him. Xianxia the Novel Fire. Net asterisk website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Xian's face was full of worry, because he felt an oppressive aura emanating from outside the dojo, causing all things between heaven and earth to tremble. Even the spiritual energy seemed restless and uneasy. The reason he could sense the situation outside the dojo was because Guin specifically allowed him to feel it. To be precise, he allowed everyone inside the dojo to feel it. At such a time, it is necessary to make the people in the dojo aware, so they would cherish what they have. Perhaps it truly might be the end of the world. Guin said softly, alarming Xian, who looked at him in fear. Xian asked, if that is so, what about us? With Guin's abilities, he could surely escape to outer heaven, so why choose to seclude in the celestial spirit great world? This catastrophe will lead to the annihilation of all beings, followed by the shattering of heaven and earth, and even the universe will collapse. Guin began to describe the future, his voice painting one solemn scene after another in Xian's mind, causing his pupils to constrict. After he finished speaking, Xian dully asked, why would this happen? Who caused all this? The nature of heaven and earth itself, or the heavenly Tao? Thousands of years ago, the concept of the heavenly Tao spread throughout the land, making all living beings aware of its existence. In the obscurity, it is the heavenly Tao that controls everything. Destiny, reincarnation all lie within the heavenly Tao. Study the great Tao. Follow the heavenly Tao. Perhaps it is the immortal gods that people admire who are dissatisfied with our world, and soon you will see the truth for yourself, Guin said with profound meaning. Xian subconsciously asked, how soon is soon? As soon as the words fell, the ground trembled, and a vast oppressive force descended, enveloping all things between heaven and earth. Xian was immediately intimidated by this force. His eyes widened, showing an expression of utter disbelief. At this moment, a series of figures appeared out of nowhere behind them. It was an Xian, Shenzhen, and others. They looked toward Guin nervously. The sudden oppressive force was truly frightening, prompting them to instinctively seek out Guin and did not turn around. He looked into the distance and said, take a good look. Recognize the true nature of this world. One day, you'll have to face such despair on your own. Hearing this, an Xian was about to speak when a thunderous boom shook heaven and earth. Guin waved his sleeve, and a light screen appeared in front of them, reflecting a vast continent. At this moment, the continent was splitting apart, dust rising with grand momentum. If one looked closely, amidst the spectacular surging tide, tendrils appeared as if something, a giant demon, was about to break through the soil. What is that? Shenzhen couldn't help but ask. No one answered her, and Guin did not explain, but let them continue to watch. As more and more dust arose on the continent, the view on the light screen zoomed out, showing more of the sea areas, while the continent was submerged by the surging waves. Soon, the expressions of an Xian and others began to change, some even with their mouths wide open in shock, as if a mortal had seen a ghost. They saw a huge round fruit rising within the mighty surging tide, its surface covered in golden Tao patterns. It was larger than the continent, rising continuously, growing larger and larger. Chun Chuan turned his head to another direction, his eyes wide as he pointed, and said in astonishment, "Look over there, quickly." Everyone turned to look and saw a gigantic object appearing on the horizon, the same mysterious giant fruit from the light screen. That is the heaven and earth Tao fruit, the essence of heaven and earth itself. Without it, there would be no heaven and earth, nor would there be all things within heaven and earth. Guan introduced. Without waiting for anyone to ask, he continued, "Someone has reached the level of profound yuan-free immortal, prompting the heaven and earth Tao fruit to appear." Profound yuan-free immortal? Blood Prison Great Saint asked impatiently. "Master, what is a profound yuan-free immortal? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 547. The Sky is Falling After Nirvana. The stages are Loose Immortal, Wandering Immortal, Celestial and Earthly Immortals, Carefree Primordial Immortal, Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma, Tao Void Profound Immortal, Divine Thought True Immortal, and Free Immortal. Guan's voice floated towards everyone. Their eyes widened in awe. CTH Novel, IR. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Guan, fearing they hadn't understood clearly enough, added, although Taoist Xianxia, immortal, and profound yuan-free immortal are still considered free immortals, the gap between each level far surpasses the 9 heavens of the immortal path. Once one reaches Taoist Xianxia immortal, they will cultivate a Tao fruit, the so-called Tao fruit. At this point, he stopped and turned his head to look towards the mysterious giant fruit on the horizon. Tao fruit. Chun Chuan couldn't help but ask, "Master, could this heaven and earth Tao fruit possibly be a cultivator's Tao fruit?" The others all looked at Guan, extremely tense, awaiting his answer. Guan replied, "Yes, the heaven and earth Tao fruit is indeed a cultivator's Tao fruit, and the catastrophe of heaven and earth is brought by the enemies who slew him." Everyone was shocked upon hearing this, turning to look at the heaven and earth Tao fruit that was still growing, feeling more powerless than ever. How many years of cultivation would it take to reach such heights? Yet such a being could still be killed. They couldn't fathom what the entity capable of slaying the creator of heaven and earth would be like. But they knew one thing. The sky was falling. Shenzhen looked at the heaven and earth Tao fruit with a strong urge to paint it down, and she instantly disappeared from the spot. An Xian looked at Guan with a hesitant face and asked, "Master, the pressure before the appearance of the heaven and earth Tao fruit. Why do I feel like I've encountered it before?" Upon her words, the others looked at an Xian in surprise. Had she also met a profound yuan-free immortal? Guan glanced at an Xian, his eyes showing a touch of satisfaction. He casually answered, "Indeed you have. Her name is Zhu Shi, who is also the Saint Heaven reincarnation." Saint Heaven reincarnation. Celestial demon child's eyes lit up with excitement as she asked, "Is it the Lord of the Holy Court?" Hearing Guan affirm with an everyone grew even more excited and began to discuss the legend of Saint Heaven. Guan said no more, vanishing into thin air, leaving the rest of the experience for them to feel for themselves. As the heaven and earth Tao fruit emerged, all sects across the world were alarmed, and one great cultivator after another flew towards the heaven and earth Tao fruit. Evenly erode the 9 extremes, Sacred Heart soared there. From afar, he looked at the heaven and earth Tao fruit, incapable of reflecting the whole fruit in his pupils, while divine exotic immortal spirit stood on his shoulder, equally showing a face of disbelief. "What is that?" Divine exotic immortal spirit asked with a trembling voice, witnessing the heaven and earth Tao fruit and instinctively feeling fear. The enormity of the heaven and earth Tao fruit shook all living beings' sight, and in the face of such creation, beings only felt reverence, not daring any disrespect. Leo also felt the pressure, and his flying speed began to slow. Reason told him that this was not something he could snatch, but another voice in his heart urged him to seize this supreme opportunity. As Leah hesitated, figures swept overhead, moving with great speed. Seeing so many fearless individuals, Leah felt greater courage welling up inside him. There's strength in numbers. Maybe he would be the one to seize it. Leah gritted his teeth and immediately accelerated forward. The enormous and spectacular heaven and earth Tao fruit hovered above the land and vast sea, with Zhu an immortal seeker, standing at the top of the heaven and earth Tao fruit, looking up into the dazzling starry sky. The celestial Tao light layer that enveloped the celestial spirit great world had become thin, as if it would completely disappear at any moment. Zhu changed into a golden robe that clung to her body, her long hair coiled under a phoenix crown, with two golden dragons on her shoulders and a crimson halo floating behind her. At this moment, she exuded an air of supreme dominance, her brows revealing a chilling disdain for all living beings. Lord of the Holy Court, Xianxia, profound Yuan, free immortal. The immortal seeker looked up and sighed. There are just too many fools who can't see. As his voice fell, a huge black hole appeared in the starry sky above, and blood-red waves of air surged out, writhing like tentacles, horrifying and terrible. Who would have thought that the celestial spirit great world could give birth to the profound Yuan free immortal during the shattered era? An authoritative voice echoed between heaven and earth, so that all creatures could hear. Zhu did not look up, but instead gazed down at the heaven and earth Tao fruit below. Each golden rune glowed with a light unique to it, appearing mysterious. The immortal seeker whispered, "The Supreme Demon Emperor from the Supreme Demon Realm has arrived. If you want to merge the heaven and earth Tao fruit, you might have to deal with him first." As his voice fell, black holes of various sizes appeared from all directions, terrible auras spilling out from them. Their converging might made heaven and earth tremble. Zhu did not raise her eyes. She simply uttered one word. "Good." Boom, boom. The palace trembled, and Xianxia, sitting at the highest seat, furrowed her brows. Her gaze turned to the palace doors outside, where the sky was dark, lightning flashed, and thunder roared. Fierce winds ravaged the forests, and in the far distance, at the edge of the sky, one could vaguely see a terrifying behemoth. Heaven and earth Tao fruit. Looking at the heaven and earth Tao fruit, Xianxia felt very uneasy. She always had the feeling of facing the apocalypse, as if it was the last day of heaven and earth. At that moment, a female cultivator swiftly flew into the hall, landing before the steps, and saluted Xianxia. "Master, the evil demon has left. It seems to be heading towards the distant, mysterious giant fruit. Should we deactivate the sect protection formation?" the female cultivator asked. The mention of the mysterious giant fruit caused her voice to hesitate for a moment. Xianxia glared at her and said, "You feel the malevolence of this heaven and earth. Do you think it should be deactivated?" The female cultivator replied helplessly, "Master, the resources consumed by this formation are truly immense, and continuing like this could easily drag us down. Over the years, you have not allowed us to go out and compete." Her voice trailed off with a hint of resentment. Xianxia responded, "You must have seen other cultivators from sects that joined the struggle. Haven't you noticed a common trait amongst them?" The female cultivator asked in surprise, "What trait?" "They all become mad, bold, even obsessive. Once they set foot on this path, it seems they can never turn back. I'm not sure if my current decision is right, but if the disciples of Gathering Flowers sect become like that, then sooner or later the sect will perish." Xianxia's words plunged the female cultivator into silence. She thought carefully about the faces of those people. They did seem off, with a crazed posture. The palace continued to tremble violently, with hot or icy winds blowing intermittently. Just as the female cultivator was about to leave, a voice full of oppression rang out. "Xianxia, I did indeed underestimate you, but the path you've chosen will surely lead to your doom." The voice of the Supreme Demon Emperor tinged with fear. Xianxia didn't know who the voice belonged to, but she knew of Shengxian's legend. Demons rampage, and immortal gods fight amongst themselves. Even in the Nirvana realm, facing such a cataclysm, are we any different from mortals? Xianxia's voice was intricate with emotion as she looked at her disciple and said somberly, "In such turbulent times, The best we mortals can do is to hide, not like moths to a flame trying to fight for something. We can't compete for such an opportunity. Search the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 548. The strongest in the world, the shout of the supreme demon emperor made all beings realize the strength of Xianxia. Those ancient legends resurfaced in everyone's minds. Before the changing of the eras, Xianxia was the most powerful existence between heaven and earth and was the supreme ruler, the true sovereign of heaven and earth. Later on, she vanished, and many influential figures emerged in the world, causing her name to be seldom mentioned. What was Xianxia doing? Just how strong was she? Countless creatures gazed at the heaven and earth Tao fruit suspended above the ground, speculating in their hearts. Xianxia had a very positive image, and in front of such terrifying celestial phenomena, the beings who knew of her began to hope that she could save everything. Inside the Taoist field of the beginningless, Guan stayed in his own room, watching the battle. Zhu was absorbing the power of the heaven and earth Tao fruit while resisting the offensive from the supreme demon realm, facing thousands alone, displaying immense strength. That supreme demon emperor was also a profound yuan-free immortal, and even at the same realm, with a group of powerful subordinates assisting him, he was still unable to gain the upper hand over Zhu. At this rate, Zhu would certainly merge with the heaven and earth Tao fruit. Judging by Zhu's eyes performance, Guan felt she was now invincible in the profound yuan-free immortal realm, which was quite exaggerated since she had not only just entered the profound yuan-free immortal realm, but had also just broken through from the Taoist Zhizai immortal realm. Even with the borrowed power of the immortal seeker aiding Zhu, her own battle talent was also very strong. Looking across all beings in the celestial spirit great world, judging solely by battle talent, Guan felt that only and how could barely compare to Zhu. Leah, Xian, Yang Jian, Chen Chuan, and others were far behind. With Gu An's current cultivation level, he had the confidence to make such a judgment, for all beings in the world were within his sight. Disciple, what would you do? Guan muttered to himself, referring to an Hao. Under the guidance of the celestial Tao Golden Core, a Hao also wanted to contend for the heaven and earth Tao fruit. But even with the power of the celestial Tao Golden Core, he couldn't possibly be Zhu's opponent. The celestial Tao Golden Core and the heaven and earth Tao fruit both belonged to the same person, but the Tao fruit itself was transformed from the Golden Core. How this being could retain both Tao fruit and Golden Core, or what Taoist technique they cultivated, was unknown. Could he possibly nurture two Golden Cores? Guan began to look forward to this being's appearance. All the current struggles were a game between the celestial spirit god and the founder of the celestial spirit great world. All beings were mere pawns. Apart from Gu and the immortal seeker was the only variable. Long Jun from the past did not count. He was no threat to the celestial spirit god. As Guan continued to deduce, the battle between the supreme demon realm and Xianxia intensified, and the world began to feel the effects, with the range getting wider and wider. As the saying goes, when immortals fight, mortals suffer. Even a hint of their unleashed pressure was enough to plunge a region into crisis. Time flew by rapidly. An exiled celestial demon child, Xian, and others couldn't calm down to cultivate. They gathered together, discussing the earth-shaking battle. The screen Guan left behind was reflecting the heaven and earth Tao fruit, which was precisely the battlefield itself. Saw the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Looking at the unstoppable Zhu, those who had seen her before were all marveling. They had never imagined that the once timid female disciple would have such a domineering side. It looks like the supreme demon realm can't stop her. She seems to be absorbing the power of the heaven and earth Tao fruit. Goodness, if she successfully absorbs it, will she continue to break through? This Tao fruit is heaven and earth itself. Controlling it would mean controlling the entire world. It's unimaginable. Yes, but don't forget what Master said. All of this is due to the machinations of immortal gods, who have yet to show themselves. Disciples excitedly discussed among themselves. They were amazed by Zhu Shi and the strength of the supreme demon realm, but they weren't panicked, although they didn't say it outright. Everyone felt in their hearts that Guan was the strongest. Even the blood prison great saint, who had seen the end of great heaven and earth, was calm. In his view, even if his master couldn't defeat the being capable of destroying the universe, he had the power to protect himself. As long as his master dared to continue watching the chaos, he wouldn't panic. He even suspected that his master wanted to snatch the heaven and earth Tao fruit. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed. The battle for the Tao fruit continued. The supreme demon realm had already lost half of its forces, and much of the land had cracked, killing countless beings. Sea waves rolled endlessly into the distance, with many magical treasures and flying creatures following them. Various sects were migrating, and there were imperial dynasties taking their citizens to flee, but during the escape, there was both unity and shady deeds happening. Tai Tasan continent was far from the heaven and earth Tao fruit. Countless cultivators at the continent's edge were blocking tsunamis. There was no immediate catastrophe, but the hearts of everyone grew increasingly heavy. The longer time dragged on, the more disaster it brought to all beings. That day at noon, another boundless and mighty pressure descended. This pressure didn't make the creatures of heaven and earth feel uncomfortable, but instead brought a revitalizing sensation. That golden core has actually found an inheritor. Wait, could it be the immortal seeker standing on the heaven and earth Tao fruit? Frowned and muttered to himself. Not far away, Zhu Shi continued to absorb the power of the heaven and earth Tao fruit. Looking upward, Zhu Shi was condensing a Dharma aspect even larger than the heaven and earth Tao fruit, with 1,000 arms, each holding different magical treasures. The Dharma aspect was ever-changing and dazzling to behold. Zhu Shi turned her head to look at him and asked, "Could it be what?" The immortal seeker had a complex look in his eyes, but simply shook his head slightly, saying nothing. Seeing that he was hiding something from her, a chill flashed in Zhu Zai's eyes, but she said no more. At this point, she had no retreat. In fact, not seeing the celestial spirit god up to this point, Zhu Shi felt something was off. The absence of the celestial spirit god meant that even if her actions were successful, they wouldn't threaten him, which was a frightening prospect. Zhu Shi looked down at the heaven and earth Tao fruit beneath her feet, her gaze attempting to pierce through the golden Tao patterns, to see through the heaven and earth Tao fruit. A dazzling bright light struck from the side, hitting Zhu Zai's face. She glanced over to see a huge sun appearing in the sky, illuminating the entire celestial spirit great world. In an instant, the whole world was enveloped in strong light. The nearby continents and oceans were stripped of color. Boom, boom, boom. Out of the massive sun surged waves of fire, forming huge golden dragons larger than mountains, breathing scorching heat. The heaven and earth Tao fruit, and how also desire it. A loud voice like thunder rang through heaven and earth, audible to all creatures. The name and how instantly embedded itself in the memory of all beings. Those who knew him were incredulous, and those who didn't felt tense. Just hearing the voice made one want to submit. Such a powerful being entering the battlefield would surely bring even greater catastrophe to heaven and earth. And how? At Supreme Sect within the Third Medicine Valley, the aged LV Batian sat by his garden, looking up at the bright sun in the sky, mumbling to himself. His turbid eyes gradually brightened. In a trance, it seemed he saw the spirited youth from 9,000 years ago standing in front of him again. "I really am old," LV Batian mumbled to himself. "But you certainly aren't old yet. Where are you? watching all this? Search the novel Fire Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 549 Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable Supreme Demon Emperor Gu and appeared with the celestial Tao golden core, and that magnificent celestial might made the situation in the great heaven and earth even tenser. Zhuxi did not respond to Gu An's forceful shouting. She directly controlled the Dharma aspect to strike at Guin, releasing the profound primordial aura that made the rules of heaven and earth tremble, causing the celestial vault's thunderclouds to churn and change color, with various anomalies emerging one after another. The clash between the celestial Tao golden core and the heaven and earth Tao fruit affected the entire great heaven and earth. This time, there was no retreat for all beings, as the disaster was no longer centered around the heaven and earth Tao fruit spreading outwards, but instead causing the great heaven and earth to crack everywhere, with no pattern to speak of. In front of these two powerful forces, any being wishing to participate in the struggle did not even have the qualification to approach. The seven subordinates of the silent destruction God Emperor were not attracted to the heaven and earth Tao fruit. Instead, they flew towards the outer heaven. After a long time, they flew to the world gate, and in front of the seated celestial spirit God, they bowed respectfully with a reverent attitude. One of them took out a long command token and said carefully, "Celestial God, we wish to return to our great thousand world." The celestial spirit God did not open his eyes, but the world gate behind him began to tremble, and a strong light burst forth from within, which relieved the seven individuals, who immediately flew into the world gate. After their figures disappeared, the world gate quickly returned to calm, and the strong light inside faded away. A mass of black chi condensed out of thin air next to the celestial spirit God, gradually forming a sinister, cold face. Celestial God, in this battle, my supreme demon realm has suffered heavy losses. Why have you not taken action yet? The mysterious face asked, its tone perplexed. The celestial spirit, God, slowly opened his eyes, which were brighter than the sun and the moon, and also demonstrated celestial might. Seeing him open his eyes, the aura of the mysterious face visibly weakened. I have my own certainty. What you seek is for the supreme demon realm to become an independent great heaven and earth. Even if these demons die out, it doesn't matter. The celestial spirit God's tone was categorically strong-willed, causing the mysterious face to frown. The celestial spirit God's gaze looked towards the celestial spirit great world, his eyes indifferent, yet seeming to be anticipating something. May I ask, celestial God, now that the celestial Tao destiny has dissipated, why don't you simply destroy the celestial spirit great world? Your goal couldn't possibly be that heaven and earth Tao fruit. The mysterious face continued to ask, growing uneasy as the situation progressed. He couldn't quite pinpoint the source of his unease. He understood the celestial spirit God. This celestial God disdained deception and would fulfill promises he made. But he didn't understand what the celestial spirit God was thinking. Do you know who created the celestial spirit great world? The celestial spirit God asked, his voice devoid of any emotion. The mysterious face answered, I only know of such a creator, unaware of their identity and name. He is the celestial spirit immortal venerable, surpassing the free immortal, condensing the golden immortal Tao fruit. The celestial court's immortal official recruited him, offering him the celestial Tao immortal position, life as long as heavenly Tao. The celestial spirit God explained. He refused. Thus he met such a fate, and his great thousand world is also not blessed by the heavenly Tao. The mysterious face went silent, pondering the celestial spirit God's intent. Was it a warning? Or was it touting the dominance of the celestial court? The celestial spirit god turned his head towards the mysterious face, his gaze making the mysterious face's color unnaturally change. Supreme Demon Emperor, you have undergone reincarnation tens of thousands of times, always one step shy of the golden immortal Tao fruit. The shortfall lies in your understanding of the world. Once you create a great world, you will naturally break through. But you must always remember who created everything and who set the order. When the heavenly Tao wishes you to do something, going against the heavenly Tao will mark the beginning of your endless calamity. The tone of the celestial spirit god made the one called Supreme Demon Emperor's expression fluctuate. Meanwhile, the great battle in the human world was still ongoing. Guin, who was manipulating the celestial Tao golden core, had white hair and skin that even started to show bloodstains. Even so, he was still resolutely staring at Zhu Shi. Zhu Shi glanced at him, her eyes revealing a disdainful sneer. She didn't understand what and how was fighting for, but the heaven and earth Tao fruit was a trap in itself. Countless beings went mad for it, reckless with their own lives. The immortal seeker looked at Hao with a peculiar gaze, occasionally glancing back at Zhu Shi. Suddenly, Zhu Shi spoke up. It seems we both consider ourselves the savior, but I am stronger. If I'm not mistaken, what we're facing is not just the celestial spirit god, but also the existence who created the celestial spirit great world, your disciple as well. As her words ended, Zhu Zai's eyes turned cold as she looked toward the immortal seeker. The immortal seeker had sought her out under the pretext of helping his disciple seek revenge. Now that his disciple was not entirely dead, their trust was naturally crumbling. Search * the Nellfire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The immortal seeker sighed. I failed to see through him. I didn't expect him to hide so deeply. However, what comes next is a good thing for you. You won't have to face the celestial spirit god alone. Zhu Shi lifted her right hand, and the thousand-handed Dharma aspect above her changed gestures, the various magical treasures blazing with dazzling light. And Hao, suspended in front of the celestial Tao golden core, suddenly had his pupils constrict. The world in front of him changed abruptly, and he found himself in a barren land with no bounds. There was no sky above, only a brilliant starscape, and Zhu Zai's Dharma aspect loomed even larger above him, looking down. And Hao frowned. Behind him, more waves of fire surged from the celestial Tao golden core, quickly pulling him into it. One of us will be possessed by him, and even though you are also a disciple of Master, his favorite disciple, I won't give up on myself. Zhu Zai's voice echoed beneath the starry void, filled with an oppressive force. Within the celestial Tao golden core, an eye appeared, occupying the entirety of it, bearing a resemblance to Hao's eyes, yet different. Meanwhile, in reality, the celestial Tao golden core collided with Zhu Zai's Dharma aspect, scattering it before landing on the heaven and earth Tao fruit, while Zhu Shi and the immortal seeker had vanished without a trace. From a cosmic perspective, the celestial spirit great world burst into a wave of shock force, spreading extravagantly through the universe. The layers of celestial Tao light completely dissipated, and the beings fleeing to outer heaven were eradicated by the shock, utterly annihilated. The evil demons assaulting the heaven and earth Tao fruit from the supreme demon realm were wiped out. In contrast, the cultivators from the human world remained unharmed. Elsewhere, in front of the world gate, the celestial spirit god slowly rose to his feet. Just as the supreme demon emperor was about to speak, he sharply turned his head, showing a look of shock. This aura, how is it possible? Is he really still alive? Exclaimed the supreme demon emperor. The celestial spirit god raised his right hand, and a giant axe appeared in his grip, spiraling with celestial Tao flame. It was the white flame that symbolized absolute order. I've been looking forward to this battle for a long time, forgetting how many years it has been. The voice of the celestial spirit god resounded, his tone becoming excited for the first time, tinged with a trace of fervor. Far away in the Taoist field of the beginningless, Guan suddenly sat up, his expression peculiar, and his eyes filled with surprise. How and he actually, Guan noticed that in Hao's physical body had merged with the heaven and earth Tao fruit, even evolving into a different aura. It felt like the awakening of a past life, yet different, and Hao was undoubtedly connected to the founder of the celestial spirit great world, but likely not a reincarnation. While surprised by Hao's transformation, the strength of the celestial spirit god was something neither Hao nor the heaven and earth Tao fruit could contend with. It would ultimately be up to him to make a move. Good. Guan stood up and began to limber up inside the room, forming a stark contrast with the celestial spirit god before the world gate. He was eager to try. The other, invincible to the world. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 550. The Treasures of the Immortal Palace, the collision of the forces between the heaven and earth Tao fruit and the celestial Tao golden core, not only made the world tremble, but also affected the other great heaven and earths within the universe, turning the disaster into a cosmic calamity. The Tao mist in the silent extinction domain surged violently, with pieces of nebulae dispersing and new ones being born. The cosmic beasts hidden in darkness began to flee in all directions, presenting a chaotic scene in the vast, boundless universe. At Supreme Sect, on the mountains at the edge of the Third Medicine Valley, Long Qing, Long Jun, and Candlestar stood side by side, looking towards the bright light on the horizon, their faces barely concealing their shock. Candlestar couldn't help but look at Long Jun and asked, "Senior, can you see through all this?" He could feel a powerful presence awakening in the distance, its momentum increasing at an unimaginable pace. "I cannot see through it either. What is happening now is completely different from the future I foresaw," Long Jun replied, his eyes complex. Long Qing caught a glimpse of Long Jun's expression with his peripheral vision and sensed the unrest and confusion of this elder. This was the first time he had seen such an expression on his ancestor's face. He looked back towards the horizon, his emotions mixed. Brother and Hao, Zhu Shi. Long Qing murmured these two names in his heart. Both were fellow disciples, and although Zhu Shi was Saint Heaven reincarnated, they had this connection. How could he not be affected? Wuxia world. Sight he realized he truly wasn't the master's most favored disciple. And Hao and Zhu Shi had already been able to dominate the trends of heaven and earth, while he could only hide within Medicine Valley to cultivate his divine skills, which were profound and unfathomable, and how much longer it would take to master them was unknown. All living beings were enveloped by the bright light, and everything lost its color. Even mortal spirits could feel the oppressive force swiftly strengthening, but miraculously, this didn't extinguish the mortal spirits. From the view of the universe, at the center of the celestial spirit great world, there was a mass of strong light, and this light was rising. Within the strong light, two figures were battling, Zhu Shi and Hao. Zhu's eyes Dharma aspect shrank to 10,000 zhang tall, completely suppressing Hao, who had turned into a bloodied figure, his physical body occasionally exploding but quickly coalescing again. Both were utilizing the power of heaven and earth, but Zhu Zai's cultivation level was far superior to Hao's, the gap in strength vast. "You're no match for me. Give up." Zhu Shi looked down upon Hao, her cold voice echoing, her Dharma aspect not ceasing its spell casting. And Hao didn't utter a word, clenching his teeth and persevering, his blood-streaked, white hair whipping about, as if he were a mad demon. Patterns of gold slowly appeared on his chest, and soon an eye emerged. It was the mysterious giant eye from within the celestial Tao golden core. Seeing this eye, Zhu Shi frowned. At that moment, countless light stars burst forth from behind Zhu Shi, hurtling towards Hao at high speed, and her expression drastically changed. She felt her own power being siphoned away, headed towards Anhao. The divine skills taught by the immortal seeker could prevent her from being devoured by the heaven and earth Tao fruit, but they could not stop the power of the heaven and earth Tao fruit from leaving. What's going on? Zhu furrowed her brows tightly, staring intently at Anhao. As the power of the heaven and earth Tao fruit surged into Anhao's body, he rapidly transformed into a blood silkworm, his curled-up body faintly visible. It wasn't just the power of the heaven and earth Tao fruit, but also the power of the celestial Tao golden core, no longer lent to Anhao, but merging inside him in an inexplicable manner. Anhao was transforming into someone else. Meanwhile, Guan, exercising his muscles in secret, was startled by Anhao's fate turning murky, making him hesitant about whether to make a move prematurely. But if he struck prematurely, the master of the great world would still leave behind a hidden danger. If the will of the master of the celestial spirit great world remained and could observe all creatures, that posed a risk for Guan as well. He couldn't let anyone know of his ability to steal lifespans. So he would wait. It was only fair that Anhao should pay a price for his choices, since no one had forced him on this path. Guan saw the celestial spirit god move, holding that familiar massive axe, and walking towards the celestial spirit great world. Behind him followed a mass of demonic qi, whose essence was the same as the evil demons of the supreme demon realm, especially similar to that of the supreme demon emperor. With just one glance, Guan saw through its cause and effect. The supreme demon emperor, the ancient being who established the supreme demon realm. The supreme demon emperor was merely his disciple, managing the supreme demon realm on his behalf, while he had always hidden in the shadows, unknown to anyone in the supreme demon realm except for the supreme demon emperor. Feeling something, the supreme demon emperor suddenly stopped. The celestial spirit god paid no mind and continued forward, his eyes only on the celestial spirit immortal venerable. He didn't walk fast, still waiting for the celestial spirit immortal venerable to revive. Before long, having lost the power of the heaven and earth Tao fruit, Zhu Zai's cultivation level fell sharply, suddenly dropping to the Taoist Xianxia immortal realm. She couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood, her complexion instantly turning pallid. She looked ahead, and the blood silkworm transformed by Anhao had grown over 100,000 zhang tall. His figure had also become enormous, still curling up. A deep breathing sound came from inside the blood silkworm, as if the oldest demon god was about to awaken. "Are you still not leaving?" The voice of the immortal seeker entered Zhu Zai's ears. She turned her head to see the immortal seeker appearing beside her. His body emitted a faint silver light, his robe fluttering slightly, full of immortal energy. Zhu retorted, "Leave? Where do I go? To the world gate?" The immortal seeker sighed. "I underestimated him. Perhaps I was also calculated by him. I will help you leave. Your talent should not be buried here." Just as Zhu was about to continue mocking, the immortal seeker's soul emerged from his body, and he turned, swinging his hand towards her. His palm was incredibly fast, so fast that even Zhu in the Taoist Xianxia immortal realm couldn't react in time. Struck by the palm wind from afar, Zhu Zai's eyes widened as she fell backward, a silver-white light gate appearing behind her. She fell straight into it, and the light gate abruptly vanished. The flesh of the immortal seeker perished, leaving only his soul floating in the void, his face showing a weary expression. He turned to look at the massive blood silkworm, his gaze complex. "My disciple, why must you also hide from your master? Could it really have been your fault back then?" The immortal seeker muttered to himself. "Celestial spirit, immortal venerable, you established the celestial spirit great world, and were conferred the celestial Tao immortal position by the celestial court. Yet you refused and even harmed immortal officials, sacrificing all living beings. Now, do you still want to commit crimes?" The voice of the celestial spirit god came from the depths of the universe, and reached the ears of all beings in the universe. The name Celestial Spirit, Immortal Venerable, made all beings remember. Establish the Celestial Spirit, Great World? Sacrifice all living beings? The information in these words struck fear into all beings. Then another voice arose. What about you, Celestial Spirit God? Without my establishment of the Great Thousand World, where would your godly position come from? You force me to sacrifice all living beings. You keep the Great Thousand World in its shattered state, unable to be repaired by the heavenly Tao. Your actions have already violated the celestial rules. What are you pursuing? Do you think I don't know? Celestial Spirit, Immortal Venerable. His voice was similar to Anhao's, but more imposing. Listening to their dialogue, the immortal seeker furrowed his brow tightly. Seeming to think of something incredible, he looked up at the giant blood silkworm and couldn't help but say, "Back when you followed me to the immortal palace, could you really have stolen that ultimate treasure?" The giant blood silkworm did not make another sound, and the celestial spirit god did not continue the conversation. Though the dialogue had ended, the vast oppressive force of the celestial spirit god was drawing near. Inside the house, Guan, listening to the conversation of the two, grew curious. What was the relationship between the celestial spirit god and celestial spirit immortal venerable? And what were the treasures they mentioned? Boom! Accompanied by a heaven-shattering loud noise, the universe trembled as the giant blood silkworm exploded. Blood winds raged in various directions of the universe. A towering figure appeared. It was Anhao, but more robust than before. His upper body bare, an eye growing on his chest, a black dragon wrapped around his waist. Vicious black chi surged below, encircling him, his white hair wildly flying. That face, identical to Anhao's, showed no emotion. He was Anhao, and he was also the celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable. Reflected in his eyes was the approaching figure of the celestial spirit god. The two, separated across the universe, locked in a destined conflict with only each other in their sight. "Master, you shouldn't have come. Go back, pretend you know nothing of this. Whether it's him or me, whether alive or dead, do not pursue it further." The voice of the celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, rang out again, seemingly unafraid of others hearing, his voice still resonant. Chapter 551. Guan versus the Celestial Spirit God. Hearing the words of the Celestial Spirit, Immortal Venerable, the immortal seeker's expression turned ugly, anger apparent in his eyes. "Why have you chosen to be born at this time?" The immortal seeker looked up at the figure of the Celestial Spirit, Immortal Venerable, and asked, suppressing his rage, knowing now was not the time for petty calculations. The Celestial Spirit, Immortal Venerable, did not answer, but instead turned to gaze toward the Celestial Spirit, Great World, his eyes filled with profound meaning. At the same time, a brilliant light appeared from the depths of the universe. It was the figure of the Celestial Spirit God holding the celestial Tao divine axe, stepping on the Tao rules. Every step he took, ripples spread throughout the cosmic space. Under his steps, the universe seemed ephemeral, ready to vanish at any moment. The Celestial Spirit, Immortal Venerable, turned back, refocusing his gaze on the Celestial Spirit God. He raised his right hand, palm facing upwards, and gold flame spontaneously appeared and rapidly coalesced into a great cauldron, growing larger continuously until it dwarfed his own form. Above the cauldron, a vortex with stars scattered within, breathtakingly beautiful, resembling the most mystical secret realm, brimming with allure. The moment the cauldron appeared, all beings felt as if their strength was being siphoned away. Countless fell paralyzed to the ground, those flying cultivators and demons crashing into oceans and between mountains. All at once, the celestial spirit Great World fell silent. Inside the palace, Xianxia lay weak on the staircase, looking toward the outside of the grand doors, her face revealing a look of despair. "Wuxia World. Sight Wuxia World. Sight." Koshi felt her mana and chi power being drawn out in an instant, even her divine sense disappearing without a trace. Her Tao practice accumulated over nearly 10,000 years. How could this be? She couldn't fathom what she was experiencing and what kind of being was behind this. Suddenly, her peripheral vision caught another pair of feet beside her. Her pupils dilated sharply as she was about to look up. A hand grasped her forearm. Endless mana poured into her, revitalizing her strength rapidly. Feeling this mana, Xianxia didn't need to see the person to instantly let her guard down. She looked up with a smile on her face. "It really is you," Xianxia said softly, her expression somewhat infatuated. Guan pulled her to her feet and asked with a smile, "Do you know why your mana disappeared?" Xianxia leaned on him. "Why?" "Because the mana you cultivated and you yourself are creatures of great heaven and earth. For great heaven and earth to reclaim everything from you, it's as easy as turning over one's hand," Guan said with a helpless smile, feeling her body against his. At such a time, this guy was still making his moves. Hearing this, Xianxia frowned, straightened up, and asked, "Great heaven and earth? Is great heaven and earth punishing us now? What do we do wrong?" "That's right, you did nothing wrong. But great heaven and earth is not what you think it is. It's actually a person, or rather a cultivator, whose emotions cannot be swayed by those he created, like you." Guan's answer shocked Xianxia. Her beautiful eyes widened, speechless. Because the words came from Guan, she believed them. And because she believed, her perception was overthrown. She felt the world was preposterous. While Guan was explaining the truth about great heaven and earth to Xianxia, the celestial spirit god had already arrived before the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable, no longer smaller in stature than the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable. Under the presence of the two mighty beings, the celestial spirit Great World seemed nothing more than a stepping stone, no longer holding the grandeur and magnificence of great heaven and earth. The celestial spirit god, still holding the celestial Tao divine axe and emitting a strong heavenly light, dazzling to the extreme, looked at the great cauldron in the hands of the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable and spoke, "Purple Chi creation cauldron, being with you has done it a disservice. Today, I hope you will let it show its true strength." The celestial spirit Immortal Venerable fixated on the celestial spirit god. "You have grown stronger." The celestial spirit god lifted the celestial Tao divine axe, pointing at him. "After I execute you and destroy your great thousand world, I will shed the identity of the celestial spirit and ascend to an even higher rank among the immortal gods." "Humph. Had you not ambushed me back then, the outcome would still be in question." As the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable's voice fell, the purple Chi creation cauldron burst forth with a vast Chi sea. The silvery stellar sea suddenly expanded, enveloping the entire universe. The aura of the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable surged relentlessly. He was absorbing the power of all things in the universe, including the powers of those great worlds. The celestial spirit god still did not make a move. The soul of the immortal seeker floated in the distance, his gaze locked on the celestial spirit god. He could tell that the celestial spirit god had utter contempt for the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable. Has he reached a higher realm? The immortal seeker frowned, feeling uneasy. It was not just him. Even the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable could feel the disdain from the celestial spirit god. At that moment, within the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable, inside a dark space, an house stood beside the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable, both gazing ahead. 100 yards away, a screen of light suspended, showing the figure of the celestial spirit god. Looking at the immovable celestial spirit god, the disheveled and Hao felt uneasy. He turned to the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable and asked, "Are you confident?" The celestial spirit Immortal Venerable, dressed in a white robe, looked very similar to an Hao, though with a more weathered face. "I can only do my best. And besides, I have no other choice, do I? The celestial spirit Immortal Venerable replied, his answer darkening Enhao's expression. The celestial spirit Immortal Venerable turned to Enhao with a smile. Don't worry too much. With my abilities, even if I cannot defeat him, helping you to escape to safety is hardly a difficult task. Enhao was not pleased. He asked, "Why do you treat me this way?" He had a suspicion in his heart, but dared not voice it. You guessed right, but also not quite. You can indeed be considered my child, but not in the way you understand birth. You were conceived from my own Tao, and it was my choice to let you be born where you were. As long as you were within my great thousand world, I could even keep you immortal. I have always been watching over you. The celestial spirit Immortal Venerable continued. Chapter 551. Guan versus the Celestial Spirit God. _2, and How didn't feel shocked. In the thousands of years he had spent comprehending the celestial Tao Golden Core, he had long sensed that his destiny pattern was extraordinary, which is why he could feel his own mission. He stared at the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable and asked, "The change of era, was it your active choice, or was it the choice of the heavenly Tao? If there were no change of era, the celestial Tao light layer weakening, how would the celestial spirit God dare to make a move?" In the process of his comprehension of the heavenly Tao, he could feel the suppression of the so-called immortal gods by the heavenly Tao. "That's right, it was my active choice," replied the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable, his gaze fixed on the celestial spirit God in the light screen. And how immediately became anxious and asked, "Why? I need time to grow. Given time, I would surely be able to help you eradicate the celestial spirit God and aid in your resurrection." He had absolute confidence in his talent. The celestial spirit Immortal Venerable turned to look at him, his eyes complex, and said, "Child, you truly are my most perfect creation. You make me prouder than the entire great thousand world. But it's not that I don't give you time. It's because there are existences in the world that are even more terrifying than the celestial spirit God." "What existences?" And Hao frowned and asked. Today, the number of powerful beings ravaging the celestial spirit great world were countless, and many names flashed through his mind. At that moment, in reality, the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable's right hand raised, and the purple chi creation cauldron took flight, spinning, the mouth of the cauldron facing the celestial spirit God. Boom! A majestic force that made the entire universe tremble erupted from the cauldron mouth, and a vast silver-blue chi sea burst forth, grand and unstoppable, illuminating the celestial vault of the celestial spirit great world. Wuxia world. Sight countless creatures lying on the ground looked up to see the celestial vault disappear. They saw a silver-blue, giant river, within which countless stars twinkled. The eyes of all beings were filled with dots of silver-blue light. They saw the figures of the celestial spirit God and the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable, resembling two founding gods, making all creatures feel their own insignificance. Even those in the immortal Tao realm felt nothing but infinite reverence in their hearts at this moment. The divine power of the purple chi creation cauldron fell onto the body of the celestial spirit God, blocked by a layer of white light. How domineering was this silver river, capable of destroying everything. The space it passed through was ripped apart into dark regions, yet even such a powerful force could not shake the figure of the celestial spirit God. "Is this all you can do?" The voice of the celestial spirit God sounded, with a hint of disappointment. Inside the dark space, and Hao witnessed this scene, his brows deeply furrowed. "As for what existence, I cannot tell you. Now our opponent is him, the celestial spirit God, the real immortal God." The celestial spirit Immortal Venerable looked ahead as he spoke, his expression returning to indifference. As his voice fell, the purple chi creation cauldron trembled, and from within that silver river emerged numerous silver figures. They swiftly attacked the celestial spirit God, and in the blink of an eye, the number of silver figures reached an exaggerated amount. They quickly surrounded the celestial spirit God, the disparity in their figures immense, like dust surrounding Mount Tai, yet somehow the dust was plentiful enough to completely surround it. Boom! A terrifying axe chi erupted, dispersing millions of silver figures, chopping through the silver river, striking the purple chi creation cauldron, and the mightily purple chi creation cauldron was directly sent flying. The purple chi creation cauldron disappeared into the depths of the universe, and all was once again silent. With just one move, the celestial spirit god had defeated the divine skills of the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable, even sending his treasure flying. The celestial spirit god maintained the posture of swinging his axe, his right arm turning slightly, swinging his axe again. The celestial spirit Immortal Venerable immediately raised his palm to defend, a powerful mana bursting forth containing the strength of thousands of great power of heaven and earth, wishing to contend against the celestial spirit god. Boom! A deafening roar resounded in the ears of all beings, and they faintly heard something like the sound of shattering crystal. Facing the attack of the celestial spirit god, the great magical power of the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable could not hold on, and was directly dispersed. His flesh bore densely packed wounds, gruesomely ghastly. Heaven-balancing golden immortal. The immortal seeker, floating in the void, looked extremely ugly as he struggled to utter these four words. The heavily injured celestial spirit Immortal Venerable furrowed his brows, his gaze towards the celestial spirit god complex. Inside the dark space, the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable took a deep breath. And Hao's spirit was taut. He hadn't anticipated the disparity between the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable and the celestial spirit god to be so great. Yuan Hao asked cautiously. He didn't know how to show his concern, because right then there was nothing he could do. It seems I cannot stop him. I will send you away. Once the celestial spirit great world is extinguished, you and I will have no more karma. Live well, for me, and witness an even vaster heaven and earth. The celestial spirit Immortal Venerable took a deep breath and spoke somberly. Upon hearing this, and Hao immediately became anxious. He was about to speak when the voice of the celestial spirit god resonated through the dark space. Trying to escape? Do you really think it's like the old days? Before the words even fell, the celestial spirit god in the light screen swung his axe again. This axe struck not only the immense body of the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable, but also shattered the light screen and the dark space. Intense light poured in, enveloping Hao and the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable. And Hao was horrified to find himself suppressed by an incredibly strong force, completely unable to move. He could only glance towards the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable. However, what made him even more desperate was the look of panic that appeared on the face of the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable. What realm are you exactly? The celestial spirit Immortal Venerable bit out, equally unable to move. He knew that the celestial spirit god was strong, but he hadn't expected the gap to be so huge. Faced with the celestial spirit god, he had no power to resist. In the midst of the blinding light, the celestial spirit god, just like before, stepped forward, seemingly symbolizing a divine power of destruction, unstoppable. Heaven-balancing golden immortal mid-stage. The voice of the celestial spirit god echoed through the space that was breaking apart, causing the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable to lose his composure. Chapter 551. Guan versus the Celestial Spirit God. _3 Even after creating the Celestial Spirit Great World, the Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable had barely reached the innate Golden Immortal realm, and the heaven-balancing Golden Immortal seemed infinitely distant to him, almost an extravagant wish. However, the Celestial Spirit God had attained it, even surpassing the early stage. In a daze, the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable thought back to when his master had taken him to the Immortal Palace, and he saw the celestial spirit god. At that time, The celestial spirit god was merely his junior, who had appeared in the Immortal Palace because the master of the Immortal Palace had taken notice of his talent. Rising from the mortal world to become the heaven-encompassing free immortal, the celestial spirit, immortal venerable, didn't care about this. In his eyes, even if the talent of the celestial spirit god was extraordinary, it would never surpass his own. In the end, he died at the hands of the celestial spirit god. And now, the celestial spirit god had far surpassed him. Throughout the long years of death, the celestial spirit immortal venerable could sense the presence of the celestial spirit god. The celestial spirit god had never left, which means the celestial spirit god had achieved the heaven-balancing golden immortal by meditating and attaining enlightenment on his own. Thinking of this, the celestial spirit immortal venerable's pride was completely shattered. He totally lost his spirit. Senior, senior. Faint voices reached the celestial spirit immortal venerable's ears, but they could not awaken his fighting spirit. Father! Suddenly, the celestial spirit immortal venerable felt a jolt like thunder awakening him. He instinctively turned his head and saw and how looking at him, his face fierce. Father, since you are my father, you cannot just surrender. Even if you die, you must die fighting. And how gritted his teeth and roared, struggling to speak as he was unable to move. Sir, the novel Fire. Net Asterisk website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. He could accept defeat. He could accept death, but he could not accept the celestial spirit immortal venerable losing confidence. Ever since his parents died in his childhood, he too had fantasized about them still being alive. Facing a demon beast back then, his father was just a mortal who, in order to protect him, fearlessly drew the beast away. It was his father's example that gave him the courage to fight to the death to protect an Xin from the same village. Later, he met Guin, the most important mentor of his life, whose strength and fearlessness guided him. The fear of the celestial spirit immortal venerable made Anhao angry. He would not allow the celestial spirit immortal venerable to display such loss of composure. What fear is there in death? Touched by Anhao's gaze, the celestial spirit immortal venerable took a deep breath and looked back at the celestial spirit god with a determined expression. He struggled to raise his right hand, facing the aura of the heaven-balancing golden immortal, his hand shaking uncontrollably, not from fear, but from being unable to bear the pressure. Even in death, I must protect him. The celestial spirit immortal venerable bit his teeth, thinking thus in his heart. Suddenly, the celestial spirit god appeared abruptly in front of the two, raising the celestial Tao divine axe high, ready to strike at Anhao. He intended to execute Anhao right in front of the celestial spirit immortal venerable. The pupils of the celestial spirit immortal venerable shrank. Time seemed to freeze, and he felt so slow. Although Anhao was right beside him, his hand just couldn't reach him. Anhao's face was illuminated by a bright light. He remained fierce, his eyes filled with towering rage, staring fixedly at the celestial spirit god. He was ready to face death, but he did not wish to die without dignity. Boom! Darkness fell before Anhao's eyes, and then a wild wind arose. The pressure that bound him suddenly vanished, but another indescribable force enveloped him, forcing him to close his eyes. The surprised voice of the celestial spirit god rang out, startling Anhao into hurriedly opening his eyes. When he saw the figure before him, his eyes widened and his body trembled. Between the celestial spirit god and Anhao, a figure appeared, blocking the celestial Tao divine axe in the hands of the celestial spirit god. The divine axe was suspended above the head of this person, unable to fall, the blade about 10 centimeters from their forehead, but it was these 10 centimeters that saved Anhao's life. The celestial spirit immortal venerable also felt the binds on himself disappear and turned to look at the figure that had appeared. His brows furrowed tightly, his eyes filled with fear. "Master!" Anhao exclaimed excitedly. That person was none other than Guin. Guin, dressed in black, stood in front of Anhao, his robe fluttering, The sword hung at his waist, his right hand still resting on the hilt, as he calmly stared down the celestial spirit god. As their four eyes met, the celestial spirit god's gaze held a scrutinizing hint, while Guin was as peaceful as still water. Guin had imagined countless times standing in confrontation with the celestial spirit god. Now that the moment had truly arrived, his heart settled into an unprecedented calm. At that moment, facing the celestial spirit god was not just Guin. There was also the extremity, Xianxia, and the Black Profound Emperor. Search the novel Fire Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 552 Celestial Idao Skill 1 Sword Slays God Celestial Spirit God Middle Stage of Hung Tian Golden Immortal Realm 0/0/0. Guin looked at the lifespan detection prompt before him, feeling puzzled. The fact that information could be detected indicated that this celestial spirit god was indeed in real flesh. A situation where all values were 0 made him think of the divine exotic ghost king. Was this so-called immortality dependent on sacrificing one's own lifespan to some power? Who are you? The celestial spirit god's voice echoed in the fragmented dark space, his posture poised with the axe raised. Guin stood before him, gazing calmly, and said, "As an immortal god, yet you seek to annihilate all beings in the great world. I really want to know, is this your own principle of action, or the will of the celestial court?" In his past life, while he was still on Earth City, he had heard of the myths of the celestial court, with both positive and negative aspects. The status of the celestial court in mythology was undeniably recognized by the Wuxia people. This life, whenever he heard of the celestial court, his feelings were complex, joyful yet anxious. He was joyful that the name of the celestial court could reach the earth where he came from. Was there hope for him to return? Anxious because, if the celestial court truly existed, would his writings of Journey to the West and the Investiture of the Gods alarm the celestial court? These emotions had been smoothed out as time passed. The celestial spirit god looked at Guin and asked, "Is it important?" "Very important." The answer made the celestial spirit god fall silent for a moment. The celestial spirit god solemnly said, "The heavenly Tao has its celestial rules. Celestial gods have their own choices." This response slightly changed Guin's view of him. By this point, that the celestial spirit god could maintain the image of the celestial court was enough to prove his loyalty to it, and it also indicated that his attitude towards the celestial spirit great world stemmed from personal feelings. A force more powerful than the celestial spirit god erupted, repelling him, and the collapsing dark space shattered as well, transporting them back into the cosmos. Tao protecting divine essence. The powerful divine power dispersed the celestial Tao divine light surrounding the celestial spirit god, revealing his true form. He was dressed in heavy silver armor, his helmet adorned with a silver dragon. His breastplate resembled a qilin, shoulder pads with phoenixes spreading their wings, and a red belt emanating pieces of world power. In his hand, the celestial Tao divine axe contained vast heavenly power, blazing and imposing. An astonished expression appeared on the stern face of the celestial spirit god. Just one move, and he felt that the other's cultivation level was not weaker than his own. With such Tao practice, why intervene in the calamity of the great world? The celestial spirit god stared intently at Guin and asked in a deep voice. He could feel boundless way of cause and effect enveloping the cosmos, and there was no escape for him. Even the connection to the heavenly Tao was severed. The opponent was exceedingly adept in the way of cause and effect. Guin raised his right hand. The celestial sword appeared in his grasp, and the blade wrapped itself in dazzling sword light, intensely bright. And Hao looked at Gu and holding the sword, his emotions surging, feeling as if his blood was boiling, his face turning bright red. The celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, looked at Guin with a complex look, especially noticing Hao's expression, and felt even more mixed emotions. At this moment, the beings within the celestial spirit great world could not see the confrontation outside. They could only see the cosmic starry sky and the whole world's silence because of it. The beings were very nervous, unclear about what was to come. On a dilapidated island, Leah lay on a cliff, struggling to look up. The divine, exotic, immortal spirit appeared on his shoulder, excitedly looking towards the universe. Leah could feel its excitement and immediately guessed the reason. His expression turned complex, but it was as though a burden had been lifted from his heart. Indeed, it still depends on you. You are the true protector of this world, unparalleled. Leah gazed at the cosmic starry sky. Thinking thus, his eyes gradually filled with admiration. Just as this thought occurred, a sword light burst through the cosmic starry sky, illuminating the heavens and earth, making Leah instinctively close his eyes. In the cosmic void, the celestial spirit god froze in place, the darkness behind him cleaved in two by a streak of sword light, still gripping the celestial Tao divine axe, trembling all over. He fixated on Guin ahead, while Guin maintained the sword-swinging posture. The body of the celestial spirit god developed cracks, divine blood seeping out, his condition greatly resembling Hao's. So fast, the celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, stared at Guin, his expression grave. He hadn't seen clearly how Guin had swung his sword, and Hao's sense of it wasn't as profound, but he could tell that his master had suppressed the celestial spirit god's momentum, which excited him. The celestial spirit god's gaze sharpened, suddenly leaping up. Nearly instantly, he burst forth with an even stronger aura, a vast sea of light appearing above him in the universe, and the celestial spirit god plunged into it, vanishing from sight. Soon after, within the light sea, a massive eye appeared. As this colossal eye opened, eyes of all sizes appeared from every direction in the universe, densely surrounding Gu and the two others, all these eyes fixated on them. Far away, the immortal seeker witnessed this scene, his expression changing once again. Celestial I Dao skill, he actually mastered such a great divine power. The immortal seeker was no longer startled for the first time by the celestial spirit god. He hadn't expected that he was still underestimating the celestial spirit god. His gaze unintentionally switched to Guin. For some reason, he could not see Guin's true face, indicating that the other party was using some powerful method to isolate his senses. However, looking at Guin's figure, it felt familiar, as if he had met him before. But no matter how much he thought, he just couldn't remember. He didn't think he had a poor memory. Rather, the other had employed the power of cause and effect. The celestial spirit god had astonished him, and this suddenly appearing mysterious existence also filled him with curiosity and awe. All these years, in the great thousand world, you are the first one to force me to exert my full strength. Those who defy the heavenly Tao should be reduced to ashes and smoke. The voice of the celestial spirit god echoed, authoritative and domineering. In an instant, countless celestial eyes burst open in the starry sky, their pupils emanating multicolored lights. Almost instantly, Guin's mana enveloped celestial spirit Immortal Venerable and Hao, and the celestial spirit great world below. The universe began to twist violently. Distant meteors ignited into towering flames, while others were frozen solid. The celestial I Dao skill can invoke the power of the heavenly Tao, allowing the 3,000 great Tao to aid him. This skill could destroy the great thousand world. The face of the celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, was solemn as he spoke, and Hao saw streams of nebulous starry seas appear in the distance, ravaging the cosmic void. Everything before him seemed chaotic and even made him feel dizzy. An invisible force was invading him, an eerie sensation he had never experienced before. The celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, looked at Guan and said, "Once the celestial I Dao skill is employed, you are essentially making enemies with the 3,000 great Dao. You cannot." He hadn't finished speaking when Guan suddenly swung his sword, and a silver-blue sword shadow appeared out of nowhere, sweeping across the dazzling, illusionary universe. In front of this sword shadow, meteors, heaven and earth, star clouds, and sun and moon all seemed insignificant. With one slash, thousands of celestial eyes were completely extinguished. Above, the sea of celestial light was also slashed away, revealing the figure of the celestial spirit god, his silver armor shattered, exposing his bloody and mangled body, his helmet thrown aside, his black hair splayed out. The celestial spirit god's eyes widened, incredulously looking at Gu and suddenly appear before him, his left hand quickly grasping the celestial spirit god's long hair, then raising his sword to slash. The sword light shone across the universe, illuminating thousands of great worlds and countless little worlds. Celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, and How, Immortal Seeker, and the observing great power cultivators from afar all blinked their eyes, and when they opened them again, the omnipresent celestial Tao pressure enveloping the universe began to dissipate. They all looked in the same direction and saw a blurred figure floating in the void, one hand wielding a sword, the other holding the decapitated head of the celestial spirit god. Behind that figure still lingered the magnificent blue sword shadow, scattered deep into the universe. The divine blood of the celestial spirit god spilled down, scorching the space, causing meteors to be penetrated by the droplets, much of the divine blood falling into the celestial spirit great world, vanishing from the mortal world. The celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, watched, dumbfounded, and How, too, was shocked. He knew his master was strong, but the celestial spirit god had already demonstrated an invincible demeanor, and such a powerful being had no chance against his master. Even more hopeless than the celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, facing the celestial spirit god. At that moment, the decapitated head of the celestial spirit god that Guan held in his hand still had its eyes open, gazing up at Guan, filled with fear. "You? It's impossible. Who are you, really?" The celestial spirit god asked in a trembling voice, unable to accept that his celestial I Dao skill had been annihilated by a single sword strike. Even an image came to his mind. Ia the Oval Fire, net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. That person, whose sword Dao talent had left a deep impression, if allowed to grow, could he reach the level of the man before him? Guan looked down at him expressionlessly, his right hand performing the universe in hand divine power, drawing the head into his palm, disappearing from sight. After doing all this, Guan turned around, looking at the universe. His eternal infinite divine sword had broken the celestial I Dao skill, yet the universe was still collapsing. This scene seemed to be moving towards the future he had predicted before. Although he was powerful, he could not manipulate the Tao rules of the Great Thousand World, because this Great Thousand World did not belong to him. Guan could feel that the reason for the universe's collapse was not just the celestial I Dao skill, but other factors as well. His gaze looked far towards the celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable. The celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, was also looking back at him, his face calm like a deep lake. And How also snapped out of his excitement. Realizing the universe was collapsing, the atmosphere everywhere dense with danger and tension. Could it be? And How seemed to think of something, his expression turning unsightly. The celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, turned his head towards him and calmly said, "Previously, I extracted all the heaven and earth's power, already causing this Great Thousand World to lose its stable Tao order. Coupled with the disruption of the celestial I Dao skill, this Great Thousand World is on the verge of annihilation, ceasing to exist." Upon hearing this, and How, surprisingly unalarmed, looked at the celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, and asked, "What should we do then? Don't you have the slightest pity for all living beings?" The celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, turned his head, looking far off at the figure of Guin, and said, "Previously, indeed I had none. However, when I saw him just now protecting the creatures of various heavens and earth from the oppression of the celestial Idao skill, I suddenly felt that I really should do something. It's also a good opportunity for me to repay him for his care and instruction towards you." As his words fell, the celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, burst into a bright light. His celestial Tao golden core and heaven and earth Tao fruit flew out from his chest, hovering over his shoulders. "I will let this great thousand world be reborn in a new way, wash away the past cause and effect, allowing celestial court to not pursue the death of the celestial spirit god, so he can stay here at ease." Search the novel Fire Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 553, Reshaping the Great Thousand World, hearing the words of celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, and Hao's expression darkened. He realized what the celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, intended to do, and he could neither agree with it nor stop it. The celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, wanted to sacrifice himself to save all living beings. As a son, and Hao could not agree, yet he could not disregard the life and death of all beings to stop him either. The celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, took a deep look at Guin. The celestial Tao golden core on his shoulder burst forth with golden light, and the heaven and earth Tao fruit rose up, quickly blossoming into expanding spiritual energy that symbolized vigorous life force. And Hao was baptized by the celestial Tao spiritual qi, and his wounds recovered rapidly. He clenched his fists tightly, gritting his teeth as he watched the gradually dissipating figure of the celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable. Guin watched this scene from afar, feeling somewhat conflicted. He guessed that the celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, had noticed him, which made him uneasy. However, due to the relationship between the celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, and Hao, he could not make a move against the celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable. Now that the celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, had chosen to sacrifice himself to protect the beings of great heaven and earth, it was also a good thing for Guin. "I was born in the celestial spirit great world, and owe you a debt of gratitude. If there's a chance in the future, I will assist you in being reborn." That's what Guin thought to himself. He didn't dwell on it any longer, but chose to carefully sense the creation of heaven and earth. He too could create a great thousand world, but even if he did, he could not take a lifespan from his own great thousand world, so he did not do so. Taking a lifespan from within his own great thousand world would be like devouring his own mana, which would not increase his mana. However, even without doing so, he could comprehend the creation of the celestial spirit, Immortal Venerable, thereby enhancing his understanding of the Tao. This was a rare opportunity, an opportunity brought by the self-sacrifice of an innate golden immortal. As the spiritual energy of nature spread, the twisted space of the universe gradually calmed down. The beings of the celestial spirit great world, being the first to be swept by the nature's spiritual energy, recovered their chi power. The celestial vault also quickly took shape, replacing the view of the cosmic starry sky. Everything was returning to normal. At that moment, the immortal seeker unexpectedly flew towards Guin. If it weren't for their past acquaintance, Guin wouldn't have let him approach. Everyone kept asking, curious and excited. With the protection of the Taoist field of the beginningless, they hadn't truly felt the oppression from the outside world. Guin looked toward the celestial vault. From now on, you will never see those two again. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned, Their excitement immediately extinguished, and they subconsciously looked at an Xian. They weren't familiar with Zhu, Shi. They only knew that an Xian and an Hao were his closest siblings. An Xian, too, was stunned. She didn't have a breakdown of emotions, but looked at Guan and asked, "Master, have you seen him already?" "Yes." "Then let it be." An Xian was very calm, and Guan did not say more. He turned to the others. "A new era is coming. The universe will become infinitely vast from now on. You will no longer live in the great heaven and earth, but in the great thousand world." The great thousand world. Everyone was astounded. They believed Gu An's words, and so they began to fantasize about the vastness of the great thousand world. And Xianxia was also somewhat dazed. Although he had cut off the cause and effect with an Hao, he had always hoped to meet an Hao. Would he really never be able to meet him from now on? Ia the Novel Fire. NE*T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Look! Celestial Cyan suddenly pointed at the sky, exclaiming loudly. Everyone turned their heads to look and saw a sun appearing in the sky that was growing rapidly larger. Celestial Demon Child was about to ask Gu, and when suddenly an unimaginable shockwave descended from the sky, leaving everyone in a bewildered state. The scene seemed to freeze. Everyone was fixed in place. Only Guan could still move. Guan looked up and could see Hao's figure, which was fading away. And Hao had chosen the same path as his father, the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable. The celestial spirit Immortal Venerable had chosen to sacrifice himself to reshape the Tao rules of the Great Thousand World, and Hao had chosen to sacrifice himself to reassemble the shattered Great Thousand World. And Hao was able to do this because he had received the Tao of the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable. He had become the controller of the Great Thousand World. In order for all living beings to quickly survive the calamities set by the heavenly Tao, he chose to sacrifice himself. In this catastrophe, Zhu Shi was sent out of the universe by a mortal seeker. The celestial spirit god was captured, and both the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable and Hao fell one after another. At first glance, it seemed there were no victors. Guan sighed at the capriciousness of fate, but he was also looking forward to the brand new Great Thousand World. Chapter 554. 9 Heaven's Cyan Bird. Taiqing golden immortal sunlight was brilliant, filtering through the gaps in the leaves and leaving patches of light across the grass in the forest. An Xian sat on a rock beside a stream, delivering a sermon to a group of boys and girls. Her voice was mesmerizing, so much so that even the birds perched on the trees cocked their heads to listen attentively. She had been speaking for half a day now, her patience greater than before, as a gentle smile constantly graced her face. Seeing the Qinquan sect disciples enraptured by her Taoist teachings, an Xian turned her head to look around, but couldn't find Guan. However, she believed her master was still there. Indeed, he was. 10 yards away, on an old tree, Guan was lying on a branch, hesitating as he stared at his attribute list. Name, Guan, lifespan, 9,555/89,904,572,611. Physique, primordial infinite body. Cultivation level, heaven balancing golden immortal realm perfection. 100 years had passed since the Great Thousand Worlds restructuring, a cataclysmic process. But under Hao and the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable's protection, all beings were unaffected, feeling only as if they had sunk into a profound dream. Upon awakening from the dream, every major sect realized that the world had become boundlessly vast, so much so that even beings above the heaven and earth flying immortal realm who flew towards outer heaven were utterly astounded by the current world. The endless expanse of the world, a thicker celestial Tao light layer, and the universe had become even more dim, and Hao had gathered all the worlds within the cosmos to create the entirely new celestial spirit Great World. The celestial spirit Great World was more than 10,000 times larger than the celestial spirit Great World. In the previous 10 millennia, not only the celestial spirit Great World had faced calamities of the heavenly Tao, but other great worlds experienced the same. Without the protection of the supporting Tao Sword Venerable, many had long been eradicated of all life. Thus, after the restructuring of the celestial spirit Great World, the heavens and the earth became vast yet desolate. With the world so infinitely vast and the number of living beings not even close to the new world's capacity, the calamities of the heavenly Tao receded. With no impetuousness left in nature's spiritual energy, young immortal emperor's proposal had been implemented by Hao, and everything was evolving for the better. Worth mentioning is that after Hao's sacrifice, his wife and children received considerable cosmic destiny, and within just 100 years, Guan witnessed the birth of a genius in the family with a potential lifespan of 8,000 years. Guan wasn't sure if it was the world's favor or Hao's will that looked after his descendants, but according to his calculations, the family would rise in the next 10,000 years, eventually becoming one of the strong families in the world. Right now, Guan's hesitation was not about the affairs of others, but his own concerns. He planned to first comprehensively enhance his own Taoist techniques. Then, after accumulating another 200 billion years of lifespan, he could strike for an even higher realm. A lifespan nearing 900 billion years seemed massive, but in truth, if he intended to enhance every aspect, it would probably be spent soon. No matter, he must improve. Even though the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable had already reshaped the order of the Great Tao in the Great Thousand World, and the celestial spirit God had not fallen, temporarily avoiding the celestial court's notice, he had to maintain the pace of getting stronger. After this increase in strength, he would start dealing with the celestial spirit God. Guan began to utilize his lifespan breakthrough. You have activated the lifespan breakthrough function. Based on your current realm, the following breakthrough locations have been selected for you. 1. Ascending to Yellow Heaven 2. Celestial Extreme, 9 Heavens 3. Abyss Tao, C4. Path of the Great Tao 5. Eastern Sea Celestial Palace, 6. Primordial Emperor Domain, 7. Profound Abyss Divine Pool 8. Golden Immortal Ancestor Tree, 9. Ling Mountain. Looking at the choices that had popped up before him, many of which he was seeing for the first time, Guan couldn't help but be moved by the infinite vastness of the Great Tao. The path of the Great Tao connected the 3,000 great worlds, and beyond the Great World were many more mysterious places. Guan's previous breakthrough had taken him to the Celestial Extreme 9 Heavens, which left a deep impression on him. After some contemplation, he felt that returning to the Celestial Extreme 9 Heavens was the best option. He was uncertain of the other locations, and although the Celestial Extreme 9 Heavens had powerful beings, they were few in number. With his decision made, Guan chose the Celestial Extreme 9 Heavens for teleportation. Teleporting to Celestial Extreme 9 Heavens will require the consumption of 10 billion years of lifespan. Do you wish to proceed? Continue. Guan closed his eyes after making his choice, and that long-absent sensation of dizziness appeared. After a while, Guan opened his eyes, and what met his gaze was an endless sea of clouds, majestic and vast. The sky was still so high, with no land in sight, and no matter which direction he looked, he saw nothing but the sea of clouds and the sky. He immediately activated his lifespan barrier and sat down to meditate on the spot. Without saying a word, he began to evolve and improve, starting with his physique. Each time, Guan invested 1 billion years of lifespan, operating slowly. It took nearly 4 billion years to advance from the primordial Tao golden body to the primordial infinite body. This time would surely take even more. Billion after billion years, Guan was collected and composed, not feeling the slightest bit of heartache. In the end, it took approximately 50 billion years for the primordial infinite body to advance to the primordial reincarnation undying body. As the final prompt fell, An enormous surge of Tao spiritual qi flooded towards Guan. The boundless sea of clouds began to churn in a very short time. Luckily, not as dramatically as the previous breakthrough. Guan closed his eyes and began to immerse himself. An hour later, his physique's transformation was successful. With the primordial reincarnation undying body, not only did his physique grow stronger, but the power of the great Tao could no longer control his flesh, and it was not worn down by reincarnation. Even if his lifespan reached its limit, his body could exist forever. Now, he could enter reincarnation in his physical form as smoothly as a fish takes to water. Guan opened his eyes, and his gaze fell on the cultivation technique column in his attribute list. Upgrade the main technique first. Great Tao, Great Freedom, as you wish Bible. He began to invest lifespan for evolution, investing 36 billion years of lifespan at once. The Great Tao, Great Freedom, as you wish Bible was elevated to the Taoist dominator skill, reaching an in-depth level of understanding. Tao spiritual qi surged toward him once again, and an endless stream of Taoist technique memories burst forth in his mind. Sar the Nelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The Taoist dominator skill, as the name implies, could dominate the great Tao. Once mastered, Guan could comprehend any kind of great Tao, and in facing any kind of great Tao, he could discern its weaknesses in an extremely short time. Most importantly, this technique could merge the 3,000 great Tao into one force, aptly named the Dominator's power. Another half an hour passed, and Guan successfully mastered the Taoist dominator skill. He didn't have time to experience it in depth and continued to enhance other Taoist techniques. Regardless of the tier the Taoist technique reached, lifespan evolution could always allow Guan to master it within half an hour, which was also a significant advantage. The Great Thousand Following Heart to Void skill was upgraded to the Sun and Moon Selfless Divine Tao, consuming nearly 50 billion years of lifespan. This technique helped Guan to conceal his cultivation level and aura. Even those with a realm higher than his could not see through it. Though, of course, if the disparity in cultivation was too vast, it might not remain hidden, which was why he continued to elevate this technique. The Sun and Moon's selfless divine Tao was even more domineering, allowing Guan to disappear into the order of the great Tao. Even if he was still present, no one would detect him. He could even turn his aura into the sun, moon, and stars, perfectly concealing himself. Again, the inheritance took half an hour. After the inheritance ended, Guan's eyes turned to the secret skills, preparing to upgrade his combat methods. Just then, a vast aura descended, one that far surpassed that of the heaven-balancing golden immortal, causing a slight change in Guan's expression. He looked up. He saw a gigantic cyan bird appear in the sky, its wings spread wide, eclipsing the sun. Its feathers shimmered with the colors of the rainbow, like a godly bird from creation, radiating an endless ancient and holy aura. This cyan bird was by far the most colossal creature Guan had ever seen. Even set against the celestial extreme, 9 heavens, the celestial vault seemed almost incapable of containing it. Guan hurled a lifespan detection at the cyan bird. 9 heavens cyan bird, early stage of Tai Ching Golden Immortal Realm, 218,726,929, 702/50, 000, 000, 000, 000//50, 000, 000, more than 200 billion years old. A lifespan of 50 trillion years. Truly terrifying. Killing it would direct unlock the ability for 1 trillion years of lifespan. But the words Tai Ching Golden Immortal only allowed Guan to contemplate the idea. Of course, even if Guan had the ability to slay it, he would not take action. That was not his style. Moreover, he suspected that behind the 9 heavens cyan bird, there stood even more powerful immortals, like the 9 heavens immortal emperor. As Guan marveled at the nine-heaven cyan bird's lifespan, the bird suddenly descended, landing 10,000 miles away. 10,000 miles is a long distance for mortals, but to the nine-heaven cyan bird, a single movement of its claws could reach Guan's dojo. This made Guan tense, ready to teleport away at any moment. The nine-heaven cyan bird folded its wings and perched on the sea of clouds, its head reaching unscalable heights. Guan then saw a figure emerge, the white-robed woman known as the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor, appearing atop the head of the nine-heaven cyan bird. As before, Guan was still unable to perform lifespan detection on the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor, indicating that her true body was not present. Two powerful entities appeared beside her, causing Guan to dare not continue his evolution. He decided to wait for the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor and the Nine Heavens Cyan Bird to leave before resuming. If they refused to leave, he would have no choice but to teleport back to the Celestial Spirit Great World. Search the Novel Fire Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 555. Entering Reincarnation. Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor stood atop the head of the Nine Heavens Cyan Bird, his gaze sweeping across the sea of clouds, which tightened Guan's heart and made him constantly ready to teleport back. Each teleportation needed 100 billion year lifespan, making it 200 billion year lifespan for a round trip. Naturally, Guan was reluctant to return lightly. The Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor had not discovered the lifespan barrier. The Nine Heavens Cyan Bird was also unaware. After a while, a slightly childish female voice rang out. "Your Majesty, are you truly not going to the grand assembly of 10,000 immortals?" Guan could feel that this voice originated from the Nine Heavens Cyan Bird, even though the Cyan Bird had not spoken. The Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor, looking into the distance with a cold expression, replied, "Boring. I've attended several times. There's not much difference. All superficial interactions, and I don't need the opportunities from the grand assembly of 10,000 immortals. Your Majesty, although the celestial extreme Nine Heavens is uniquely endowed, discussing Tao with other immortal cultivation great powers could further aid your cultivation. If you wish to go, you can go on my behalf. If you don't go, there's no point in me going. Forget it, let's not go. By the way, Your Majesty, what do you think caused this anomaly?" The Nine Heavens Cyan Bird changed the topic and looked around the boundless sea of clouds as it spoke. The Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor, expressionless, said, "The celestial extreme, Nine Heavens, located above the Great Thousand World, is a juncture of the Great Tao. The anomaly here might have originated from the lower realm. Even I cannot directly determine." Hearing this, the Nine Heavens Cyan Bird fell into thought, its bird eyes flickering with strange light. Above the Great Thousand World? Guan captured this information, growing more curious about the celestial extreme Nine Heavens. Could it be that the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor has no connection to the celestial court? Guan did not feel the celestial Tao destiny from the Nine Heavens Cyan Bird. And as for the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor, since she was not the true body, he could not sense anything. If he closed his eyes, he wouldn't even be aware of her presence. After a while, the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor leaped into the air and flew towards the distance. The Nine Heavens Cyan Bird followed closely behind, and they soon vanished at the end of the sea of clouds. Guan relaxed and waited patiently. 1 hour later, no longer sensing the aura of Nine Heavens Cyan Bird, he reopened the attribute panel and continued to enhance. Next up was the Eternal Infinite Divine Sword. Although he had already mastered the Sacred Heart Sword Tao, which merged with the River of Sword Tao, deemed an independent existence, he felt he couldn't solely rely on the Sacred Heart Sword Tao. He needed stronger sword techniques as his trump card. The eternal infinite divine sword evolved into the 3,000 slaying Tao swords, achieving the mastery realm, consuming 80 billion year lifespan. During the half-hour inheritance, neither the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor nor the Nine Heavens Cyan Bird returned. Thus, Guan continued to invest his lifespan in evolution. Profound yellow eternal Tao step advanced into Taoless celestial net step, consuming 42 billion year lifespan and reaching the realm of integration. Celestial dark purple micro Saint Tao body evolved into Hongmeng void golden body, also at the realm of integration, consuming 76 billion year lifespan. After upgrading the most core Taoist techniques, Guan turned his attention to the Great Soul Capturing Immortal technique. This technique could perform soul search, but as the enemy's realm was higher, the difficulty of soul search increased. It needed enhancement. This was still the transformation of soul capturing technique that Xianxia had taught him years ago. Guan spent 130 billion year lifespan in one breath, allowing the Great Soul Capturing Immortal technique to advance several levels, finally evolving into Calamity Absolute I. Calamity Absolute I could not only perform soul search, but also bring bad luck to the enemy, with the nature of the calamity shaped by the caster's imagination. A very domineering divine skill. That's it. Search * the novel F. Ire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Guan dared not continue evolving because, accounting for the lifespan barrier's consumption, he only had 230 billion year lifespan left and still needed 100 billion year lifespan to teleport back. After a series of evolutions and enhancements, Guan felt a complete transformation even though his cultivation level had not increased. His strength had greatly changed. Now, handling Celestial Spirit God should be effortless. Thinking this, Guan stood up. He gazed at the constantly churning sea of clouds, as if for one last look, since he definitely needed to change locations upon the next breakthrough. The recent appearance of the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor and Nine Heavens Cyan Bird was definitely not a coincidence. They must have intended to investigate his whereabouts. Even if their words didn't directly reflect it, he had to stay alert. Guan chose to teleport back, and as he thought, he vanished on the spot. Guan returned to the forest near the Qingquan sect and could no longer see an Xian and the others. Unable to find him, an Xian returned to the dojo to cultivate. Guan did not hurry back. Chapter 556. Gu Ns Story Gu and entered the Taoist field of the beginningless, and from a distance, he saw two people engaged in combat high up on the mountains. It was LV Xian and Chen Chuan. These two were the most combative, even more so than the Blood Prison Great Saint, but they were merely sparring, not fighting out of anger, so Guan never stopped them. Watching Chen Chuan's elegance in the sky, Guan was very gratified. In his memories, he had never seen Xiao Chuan so spirited and confident. He also pondered when to let Chen Chuan recover his memories from his past life, but he felt that such matters shouldn't be rushed. Letting nature take its course was best. A figure suddenly appeared beside Guan. It was an Exan who looked at Guan with a grievance and said, "Master, why didn't you say a word to me when you left yesterday?" You're the master. Or am I the master? I just wanted to go out with you for a bit. If you're bored, you could go to the Qingquan sect. Many new things will happen there, and I will also go to see the excitement. Really? Guan was not lying. With the reshaping of the celestial spirit great world, various great heaven and earth started to interconnect. Sects began to wander the world, and in the coming years, the entire celestial spirit great world would embrace a thriving vitality. A new era was beginning. Sects vied for supremacy. Different great heaven and earth harbored different immortal cultivation philosophies, and these philosophies would clash, creating more sparks. The next era would be unprecedented. Those great powers who survived from the old era would rise to the pinnacle of authority, and the new great world would be far stronger than before. The new rules of heaven and earth would conceive more geniuses, even elevating the potential of these talents. Guin felt the destiny of heaven and earth, already foreseeing the birth of many geniuses with the ultimate lifespan of 9,999 years. He was very much looking forward to it. As the master and disciple chatted, they walked along the mountain path. The gentle breeze made an Xian a bit distracted. Unconsciously, she was already 9,521 years old. She felt her life experiences weren't rich, but this also meant she had lived a peaceful and comfortable life. She turned her head to look at her master beside her. His profile sent her heart into a state of tranquility. Xianxia the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. She, too, began to feel anticipation. 10,000 years later, a million years later, or even 10 million years later, would she still be able to follow by her master's side? If she followed, what kinds of views would she see? The spring festival of the Xianxia sect had just ended, and the shadows of cultivators could be seen everywhere between the mountains. Most of the cultivators were flying in the same direction, towards a giant city surrounded by mountains on all sides, bursting with rays of light like a mirage, brimming with the grandeur of an immortal city. This city was Xianxia sect's main city. 1,000 years had passed since the great world was reshaped. The Xianxia sect seized the opportunity to develop quickly, not only becoming the leader of the Orthodox Taoist sect on the Nine-Spirit continent, but also establishing prestige in the surrounding seas. This year, Xianxia sect planned to hold the 100 Teachings Conference, inviting hundreds of Orthodox Taoist sect from inside and outside the seas to discuss and exchange Taoist techniques. This was the first time for Xianxia sect to hold such an event, making Xianxia sect's main city extraordinarily lively. Within the main city, the library pavilion was packed. Under Zen's guidance, the structure of Xianxia sect was almost identical to the Supreme Sect's. However, Xianxia sect was far away from the Supreme Sect, so the two sects had not intersected for the time being. Why is Xianxia Venerable sold out again? With the foundation of the Xianxia sect, why can't you print a few more copies? A young male disciple stood in front of the counter, glaring at the library pavilion disciple, and demanded. The library pavilion disciple spread his hands helplessly and said, "Brother, shouting at me is no use. I'm just in charge of selling." The young male disciple glared at him and left with a flick of his sleeve. Then another disciple approached the counter to inquire about the book Xianxia Venerable. At this moment, on the second floor of the library pavilion, Gu'un, dressed in blue robes, stood in front of a row of bookshelves browsing books. Celestial Demon Child came over and saw the title of the book he was looking at, not helping but curl her lips in distaste. "Young master, even a book like this is worth your time?" Outside the dojo, Gu'un had instructed not to call him master, but young master instead. Although Celestial Demon Child didn't understand, she thought calling him young master was quite nice. At least it made their relationship seem more equal, which often led her to wild fantasies. Gu'un, holding Nine Spirits Hero Legend, smiled softly and said, "As long as it's a book, it's worth reading." Since he started writing within the Xianxia sect, a trend of novels had been set off, and Nine Spirits Hero Legend was one such novel about the protagonist's adventures, clearly trying to imitate his style. Hearing Gu'un's words, Celestial Demon Child pursed her lips and then turned to leave. She planned to take a walk in the city. With her cultivation level of the loose, immortal realm, she was considered a great cultivator within Xianxia sect and wouldn't run into trouble, especially with Gu'un there. After Celestial Demon Child left, Gu'un continued reading. It wasn't long before two women ascended to the second floor, none other than Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai. Since being saved by an Xian, they had lived on the Nine-Spirit continent. Later, seeing the Xianxia sects rise to power, they voluntarily joined, and now they were also disciples of the Qinquan sect. In reality, given their status, they could become elders, but they didn't want to be too tied down to the Qinquan sect, knowing that they would eventually leave. "Sis, why did we come here?" Tang Kai asked, in confusion. The library pavilion was full of miscellaneous books. If one sought the pursuit of Taoist techniques, they would visit the scripture pavilion. Li Xuanyu answered, "Just to look around. Your heart is too impatient. It's good to temper it." Her gaze swept through the second floor, passing over each disciple as if seeking something. However, after looking around, she did not find the person she was looking for, and a look of disappointment flashed in her eyes. Tang Kai, upon hearing Li Xuanyu's words, immediately felt dissatisfied. She had just completed a meditation retreat of 800 years, and still she was considered impatient. She was about to retort when she saw Li Xuanyu walk toward the stairs leading to the third floor. "I definitely am not impatient." These years, Tang Kai caught up with Li Xuanyu and tried to defend herself. "Senior Sister Li." A voice came through, bringing Li Xuanyu's steps to a halt. She turned to look and saw Guan, holding a book and walking between two rows of bookshelves. Li Xuanyu felt a little dazed, having not seen him for 10,000 years. Guan seemed totally different from the person in her memories. The Guan in her memory was cautious and reserved, but the Guan before her now was handsome and extraordinary, seemingly an immortal walking amongst mortals. Tang Kai glanced at Guan, her expression one of suspicion. She was astounded at her first sight of Guan. What a handsome man. This was only her personal judgment, and not a case of love at first sight. She had wandered the world and seen many people, but had never come across a cultivator with a presence like Gu Ans. Even her beloved Liya did not have an aura to match Gu Ans. What attracted her more to Liya was his heroism and loyalty. Guan walked over to Li Xuanyu and asked with a smile, "Senior Sister Li, don't you recognize me?" Li Xuanyu came back to her senses and said with emotion, "Of course, I recognize you. To be honest, the reason I've come here is to look for you. After all, your disciple is also on this continent, and everything about the Qinquan sect is a lot like the Supreme sect. I guess that had something to do with you." She didn't know that Guan was the supporting Tao Sword Venerable, but the strength of an Xin proved Gu Ans Tao practice had already surpassed hers. The reason she wanted to find Gu and was merely to express her gratitude in person. Chapter 557, Celestial Spirit Reincarnation, Borrowing Life Amid the Scorching Summer Days. Within the Taoist field of the beginningless, beside a lake, Guan was preaching the great Tao to his disciples, who were listening as if intoxicated. Seeing that everyone had sunk into the enlightenment of the Tao, Guan took out a jade flute from his bosom and admired it closely. "Guan, the great Tao you speak of is truly profound and vast, conjuring in me numerous visions. However, I'm very curious. Have you actually seen those embodiments of the great Tao?" Shenzhen opened her eyes, looked at Guan, and asked curiously. She was the closest to Guan, and her voice was so soft that it did not disturb the others. Guan glanced at Shenzhen and said, "The great Tao is everywhere. What have you seen? Where do you wish to go?" With a troubled look, Shenzhen said, "I saw the universe and the stars, and a white staircase leading to a door." "What kind of door?" "Indescribable. All I can remember now is vague, but I'm sure it was a door." Shenzhen recounted while speaking. After a pause, she continued to ask, "Guan, do you think those visions I see could be some form of calculation?" Guan smiled at her and said, "That's something you'll have to feel and judge for yourself. It's good that you're thinking about this. Never lose your reverence for the unknown. Always be vigilant, for it is often more beneficial than not." Shenzhen nodded and said, "I'll be careful. If the great Tao guides me somewhere, I'm certain I won't go." She had heard from Gu and about the experiences of an Hao and Zhu Shi, which made her even more vigilant about inexplicable opportunities. The visions she saw while seeking the Tao seemed like a lure, and she didn't want to be deceived. If you encounter things that are hard to judge, you can also talk to me about them, Guan said, then stood and turned to walk toward the nearby woods. Xinjun had no further questions to ask, and she didn't follow Guan's steps. After so many years, she had grown less curious about where Guan went. Now, she just wanted to comprehend the great Tao. In its vastness, she could experience all the things she desired. She aspired to become a great cultivator like Guan elsewhere. Guan stepped into the woods, and in one step went to another place in the human world. This was a mortal city, bustling streets, with no cultivators seen among the throngs of people. Just 2 or 3 transformed demons. However, they did not do any harm, but instead were performing their talents in a pavilion known as the Apricot Flower Tower. Guan appeared on the street without drawing the attention of the passers-by, for no one could see him. Even a boy passed through his body, feeling no physical collision. The streets were noisy and busy before his eyes. The close proximity of prosperity felt unattainably distant. In a daze, he saw an additional figure on the street, with people passing right through it, which was very eerie. His hands trembling, he raised them and rubbed his eyes to make sure he wasn't seeing things. Indeed, there was a figure that no one else but he could see. Could that be an immortal god? Xiao Wu spoke weakly. While the 2 beggars beside him were asleep and didn't hear his murmur, and the other beggars didn't pay attention to him either, because everyone knew he was dying. Guan was surprised that Xiao Wu could see him. He hadn't intended for Xiao Wu to be able to see him. With that thought, Guan willed his presence to deepen, and he disappeared from Xiao Wu's sight in an instant. Seeing that he had disappeared, Xiao Wu instinctively looked in other directions, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't see Guan again. It was just an illusion after all. I knew someone like me couldn't possibly encounter an immortal god. Xiao Wu hung his head low again, continuing to endure the suffering from his illness. Until dusk, a beggar walked over, quivering. It was Xiao Wu's older brother, known as Lao Da. He squatted in front of Xiao Wu, placed the medicinal herb bag stained with blood on the ground, shook Xiao Wu, but there was no response from him. Lao Da's eyes widened with bloodshot eyes, and his right hand trembled as it moved towards Xiao Wu's nose. Soon he got a fright. He didn't push Xiao Wu away. Instead, he lifted Xiao Wu onto his back and, taking the medicinal herb bag, walked away. Following that, Lao Da carried Xiao Wu on his back and went to all the large and small pharmacies in the city, but no one was willing to treat Xiao Wu. Out of desperation, Lao Da gritted his teeth and carried Xiao Wu out of the city. As night fell, Lao Da didn't look back amidst the fading hustle and bustle behind him and pressed forward with unwavering determination. Lao Da carried Xiao Wu aimlessly forward, not knowing where he should go, but he was unwilling to give up. It was only when he heard a wolf's howl that he finally snapped out of it, by which time he had already lost his way. Don't be afraid, Xiao Wu. Big brother will definitely save you. Definitely. Lao Da murmured to himself softly. He was trying to bolster his own courage. There were always legends in the countryside of immortals living deep in the mountains. The physicians in the human world were not willing to save his brother, so he had to seek out an immortal. He's already dead. What do you think you're going to take him? Such deep brotherly love. Well, we could save him, but you'll have to give something in return. 3 feminine voices rang out, coquettish and seductive, making one's imagination run wild. Except in the darkness of the night, they seemed sinister and frightening. Chapter 558 The Legend of Lu Qiuxin. The night was like water. 3 white foxes teasingly stared at the boss, as if looking at prey. Faced with their gaze, the boss was engulfed in an inner struggle, and Little Five on his back had no breath left, his body growing stiffer, which made his heart even more anxious. Although he was a beggar, living at the lowest strait of society, many people humiliated him, but he had never thought about killing anyone. At most, he just wanted to beat up those who bullied him. In his view, Killing was an unforgivable act, but his younger brother, Little Five, was still waiting for him to rescue. The boss took a deep breath. He looked up at the three white foxes and gritted his teeth. "This is it. Take my life to save my brother, and let my brother serve you as a servant for a lifetime." Little Five was disabled, and life was hard to manage by himself. If he could be tied to these three demons, perhaps he could find a better way out. Although demons were not as powerful as the immortal gods, they were still not comparable to ordinary people. What if the demons could make Little Five grow legs? Hearing what the boss said, the three white foxes were stunned for a moment, and then they started giggling. "Your brother is a cripple. Is he supposed to serve us? Or should we serve him? Mortal, you think too much. Such a coward doesn't even deserve to serve us." Facing the demon's mockery, the boss was not angry, just more nervous and uneasy. He finally had a chance to save his brother. How could he give up? "As long as you're willing to go into the city and kill, we can make your brother normal, repairing the physical defects. And there are plenty of evil people in this city. It's not just your brother you'd be saving," one white fox said with a profound meaning, which made a new light shine in the boss' eyes. At the same time, Guan stood under a nearby tree watching this scene. These three white foxes were Tier 2 demons, comparable to the Foundation establishment realm, still unable to undergo transformation. What they said was true, hoping the boss would kill the evil people in the city. They dared not act personally, because there were immortal cultivation sects nearby that would capture and kill misbehaving demons, thinking that using the boss as a proxy would be enough to deceive everyone. Guan had no intention of interfering. Even if people died because of this, he wouldn't care. He had rescued too many beings before. Now he wouldn't hesitate over the life and death of one person. Of course, if someone truly moved his heart, he would act as he wished. Eventually, the boss agreed. He put down Little Five and then returned to the city alone. As soon as he left, the three white foxes surrounded Little Five and began casting spells to protect his soul. Chapter 559, 10,000 Years of Refining Treasure. Gu Ans sect hearing LV Xian's words. Celestial Cyan, Xianxia, and others couldn't help but roll their eyes. They hadn't been clinging to LV Xian. Instead, they began to discuss the magical treasures they each desired. An Xin was in charge of taking notes. After recording their needs, she would then go to find others. An hour later, an Xin arrived at Gu Ans' courtyard. At the moment, Guan was sitting in front of a great cauldron. His right hand was burning with a three pristine true fire as he stared at the flame in his hand, his expression calm and contemplative. "Master, I've asked everyone," an Xin said softly, standing next to Guan, holding a stack of paper in her hands. She found it strange. Given her master and the others' abilities, why did she need to run around? Direct communication would do. She figured her master was messing with her. But as a disciple, what could she say? Put to the side for now, and assist your teacher in what comes next. Guan tossed the three pristine true fire beneath the cauldron and then began to speak. As his voice fell, a considerable number of exotic ores and medicinal herbs flew out from his sleeves. And Zin's eyes lit up. She had long wanted to learn artifact refining and yearned for a magical treasure suitable for her. Guan remained seated, casting spells from a distance, transferring materials for artifact refining into the cauldron. An Xin approached the great cauldron, using her divine sense to peek into its contents. Guan was preparing to refine a magic artifact with his own Dao intent, creating a magical treasure unique to his path. It would be a drawn-out process. By the next day at noon, Guan had left an Xin to keep watch while he went to gather medicinal herbs alone. This task was crucial. He had restrained his murderous impulses and greed, so he must not be negligent in harvesting. His annual lifespan income had stabilized around 30 million years. He could continue to improve, but he didn't want to overexert himself or attract too much trouble. The celestial spirit Great World had restored order and, for the time being, faced no attacks from forces beyond. For Guin, that was the best kind of life. But destiny was unpredictable, and he couldn't draw the attention of beings from other great worlds to shatter this peace, especially from the celestial court. As long as the heavenly Tao loomed over the celestial spirit great world, Guin couldn't ignore the threat of the celestial court. Time flies like an arrow. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 years passed. At noon, within the Taoist field of the beginningless, Guin lay on a rocking chair, pulling up his attribute panel to check. Name, Xianxia the Novelier. The 3,000 great Tao are omnipresent, and the Taoist dominator skill could assist Guin in his contemplation directly. These Tao treasures all had the power to surpass Immortal Path ultimate treasures and would continue to grow stronger with their owners' achievements in the great Tao, their limits unfathomable. At the very least, these Tao treasures were stronger than the 9 Extremes Sacred Heart Sword in Li Ya's hands. A Tao treasure every 1,000 years. Except for the ghost mother of ephemera, everyone received a Tao treasure, indicating 9,000 years had passed. Guin, now over 20,000 years old, possessed a lifespan of over 340 billion years. The sunlight spilled down as everyone surrounded an exant, inquiring about her 6 paths mirror, her face full of excited smiles. Finally done with work, it's time to make a breakthrough. Guin thought to himself silently. Looking back on the 9,000 years that had passed, even he couldn't help but marvel at how swiftly time had flown. As there were no external threats, these 9,000 years were uneventful, a repetition of days. From refining the age-colored cloud silk, Guin spent 10,000 years crafting Tao treasures for his disciples, and through this process, he continued his cultivation. 10,000 years later, even without using lifespan evolution, his power had significantly improved. Master, aside from you, is there anyone else who can refine Tao treasures? Xianxia looked at Guin, asking curiously. Holding the reincarnation Tao-slaying sword, even after 2,000 years, he was still enamored with it. The others followed suit. Looking at Guin smiled and said, "Perhaps there are others, but your Tao treasures were forged with my great Tao. In the future, I could help strengthen your Tao treasures and even use them to connect with you." At those words, everyone became even more excited, which meant they could rely on Guin any time, even if they went out in the future. Couldn't they? Master, why not establish a sect? There's no need to recruit many disciples, but at least we could set a banner. In the future, when we introduce ourselves, we can declare which immortal sect we belong to and also add luster to your reputation. Blood Prison Great Saint suddenly suggested, with the others echoing him. This was a plan they had long discussed and were waiting for the right moment to propose. Guin had already heard their discussions over the years and had also been contemplating this matter. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 560. The Primordial Era, Primordial Chaos Body. During the long years of cultivation within the Taoist field of the beginningless, LV Xian, Chun Chuan, and others would fantasize about traversing the human world, and they too wanted to forge a resounding reputation like Li Ya. They felt grateful towards Guin in their hearts, thinking that he should not be forgotten by the people. If Guin did not want to come into the limelight, then as his disciples, it was their duty to help their master propagate his holy name. Everyone looked at Guin with fervent gazes, waiting for him to confirm the name of their sect. Guin pondered and said, "Let's take the name of the dojo for our own, for we shall be called the Beginningless. We have no sect, no door, no clan nor path. Beginningless implies no start, and hence is the realm of eternity. I will chase after the realm of eternal immortality, and I hope that you will uphold my will and eventually break free from the shackles of the 3,000 great Tao to become true carefree immortals." Upon hearing this, everyone was ignited with excitement, praising the name one after another. Beginningless is excellent indeed. From now on, I shall introduce myself thus. I am beginningless LV. Sounds dominant already. I also think it's good. Adding sect or gate would have been rather trite. Perhaps many years from now, the beginningless will become the most mysterious place in the great thousand world, with countless people yearning to pursue it, yet unable to find the way. Fantastic, now that the name of our force is set, am even more motivated. From now on, I'll fight for the beginningless. Listening to the discussions of his disciples, Guan shook his head with a wry smile, and without saying more, turned and left. Millennia passed, and the disciples exchanged knowledge with one another. They had already learned how to use Tao treasures and also understood Guan's attitude towards them, that they would not be misused. Once Guan had left, everyone became even bolder. Chun Chuan excitedly asked, "Tell me, is my reincarnation Tao-slaying sword more powerful, or is Elder Least 9 Extremes Sacred Heart Sword stronger?" Wuxia world. Sidon Xian gave him a look and said, "Don't think about such questions. We should show elderly respect." LV Xian snorted. "What's wrong with being stronger than him? Respect is kept in the heart. Who knows, he might one day depend on us for rescue. I think Tao treasures are stronger than Immortal Path ultimate treasures. If you can comprehend the great Tao within a Tao treasure, you should be able to feel its vast Tao intent. Our beginningless Tao treasures will surely be the most powerful magical treasures." After hearing this, and Xian looked at the six paths mirror in her hand with a smile on her face. He had taken on many disciples over 10,000 years, but as the sect leader, he always considered the disciples of the supreme sect more, hoping his own disciples could bear more since they had enjoyed more of the supreme sect's resources. The return of Yi Tsang did not alarm Long Qing. It merely made him miss his master. You have initiated the lifespan breakthrough function. Based on your current realm, you have been offered the following breakthrough locations. 1. Celestial Extreme, 9 Heavens. 2. Ascending to Yellow Heaven. 3. Taiwei Earth Core. 4. Netherworld Deep Sea. 5. Desperate Celestial Tomb. 6. Path of the Great Tao. 7. Azura, Abyss, Misty Immortal Court. 9. Ling Mountain. Many of these places had appeared before. This time Gu indirectly ruled out Celestial Extreme, 9 Heavens. He carefully pondered these names, and he was very interested in Ling Mountain. In Huaxia mythology, Ling Mountain was the Buddhist sect's dojo. Now that Celestial Court had appeared, he was not sure if this Ling Mountain was the same as the one in the mythology. Despite his curiosity, Guan did not want to go to Ling Mountain. He vaguely felt that the waters of Ling Mountain were very deep. Other places looked very expansive, while Ling Mountain seemed like just one mountain. Even though the lifespan breakthrough transfer locations are temporarily safe, he did not want to risk it. For him, the bigger the better for breakthrough locations. So even if anomalies were created, no one would intrude into the lifespan barrier. Thinking it over, Guan decided to go to the Desperate Celestial Tomb. There should be no powerful beings in the tomb, or if there were, they would be sealed. Also, for some reason, seeing the Desperate Celestial Tomb, Guan felt a connection to this place. Transporting to Desperate Celestial Tomb will consume 10 billion years of lifespan. Do you wish to continue? Continue. The thought had just arisen when an unusual state that he had not felt in a long time enveloped Guan. He closed his eyes, losing all senses. After a while, Guan felt his feet touch the ground. He immediately initiated the lifespan barrier, and then opened his eyes. What entered his eyes were a series of ruined palaces and ancient stone pillars towering into the clouds, the ground undulating unevenly, no flowers or grass in sight, only yellow soil and rocks, with the far-off dust swirling into the sky, making the end of the scene indistinct. vast and desolate. This was Gu An's first impression. The Tao spiritual qi here was very dense, even denser than in the celestial extreme 9 heavens. But the aura of the Tao here was not as abundant, with the path of cause and effect being particularly outstanding. This was actually good for Gu, and even though he had begun to explore other paths of the Tao, the path of cause and effect was still his main focus. Looking around, Guan did not feel the presence of any living beings. The desperate celestial tomb was bigger than he had anticipated, endless to his hard eyes' sight. He was curious whether the whole world was inside the celestial tomb, or if this place was hiding it. He sat down on the spot and pulled up his attribute panel to check. He didn't return to the Taoist field of the beginningless, but took one step to arrive at the outer sect city of the Supreme Sect. It had been tens of thousands of years since he last returned to the Supreme Sect. Compared to the last era, the Supreme Sect was even more prosperous. Even the outer sect city had been expanded, and it was more vast than the sect's main city of before. Guan appeared out of thin air amid the crowd in the streets without attracting anyone's attention. Even when he appeared in front of the passing disciples, they only felt that he had an extraordinary demeanor and were not confused about his sudden appearance, which was the effect of his Tao intent. He could influence people's perception, even manipulate their minds. The Supreme Sect was bustling today. As Guan strolled around, he listened to the discussions among the Supreme Sect disciples. I heard that Grand Elder Zhu Xing himself took action and still couldn't subdue Yitsong. Is the primordial chaos body really so domineering? Not exactly. Yitsong wields an immortal path ultimate treasure, and clearly, there is a prominent figure behind him. It is said that the Guangyuan Saint sect supporting him possesses great powers that transcend the 9 heavens of the immortal path. The Supreme Sect won't be overwhelmed, right? Yitsong was also once a disciple of our Supreme Sect, but now he has become our enemy. What exactly happened back then? Guan listened to these discussions without paying Yitsong any mind. The new era would give birth to new talents, especially since the current great heaven and earth are far stronger than in the last era. Before the great thousand world was reshaped, thousands of great heaven and earths were scattered across the universe. From ancient times to the present, entities wanting to transcend the free immortals realm would leave the great heaven and earth to seek opportunities in the universe, because their own heaven and earth could not help them reach higher realms. Now, the great thousand world has been restored to its original state, and the heavenly Tao has reemerged. Opportunities are everywhere, and more great powers are returning. Some come from the river of the great Tao, others from reincarnation. There are myriad ways, making the overall strength of the celestial spirit great world rapidly increasing. As for the celestial court, perhaps standing too high, they have not noticed this, and the battle court is even more elusive. Returning to the Supreme Sect, Guan mainly felt nostalgic and wanted to come back and take a look. He walked slowly, admiring the street scenes along the way, and before he knew it, he had arrived in front of the library pavilion. This time, he didn't step inside. Compared to his last visit, the library pavilion had become majestically imposing, and he felt a sense of unfamiliarity. Old acquaintances kept surfacing in Gu An's eyes, bringing a smile to his face.